The Morning After. An MM Wedding Crasher, Fake Boyfriend Romance by Riley Fox. Copyright 2025 by Riley Fox. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced in any form or by any electronic or mechanical means, including information storage and retrieval systems, without written permission from the author, except for the use of brief quotations in a book review. Chapter 1. Wrong Place, Wrong Time. SILAS. Silas Reeve adjusts his black tie for the third time in 10 minutes and checks his phone again. The GPS had been acting up all morning, recalculating his route twice, but he'd finally arrived at what should be the right location. For starters, there are entirely too many flowers. Bright, cheerful flowers in shades of blush pink and ivory, arranged in towering displays that scream celebration rather than the respectful remembrance he's been hired to facilitate. And then there's the music. Classical strings drift through the air, playing something decidedly more pachelbel than funeral dirge. Silas pauses at the edge of the manicured garden path, squinting at the elegant Victorian mansion ahead. Through the tall windows, he can see people in pastel colors mingling with champagne glasses, not a single tissue box in sight. This is either the most upbeat memorial service he's ever attended or... "Oh no," he whispers, pulling out his phone to double-check the address. His heart sinks as he scrolls through his messages. The text from Mrs. Hartwell's daughter reads, "Memorial service relocated to Willowbrook Gardens due to unexpected attendance. 2847 Maple Ridge Road, 2 p.m. Sunday." He checks the brass nameplate by the gate, Willowbrook Estate. His faulty GPS had sent him to Willowbrook Estate instead of Willowbrook Gardens. Similar names, wrong venue. He checks his watch, 1:47 p.m., which would have been perfect timing if he were at the right location. But this is definitely not a funeral. A woman in a flowing lavender dress practically skips past him, giggling into her phone about June's big day, and Silas's stomach drops. June, not Hartwell. He's crashed a wedding. Silas takes a step backward, then another, hoping to retreat before anyone notices the man in funeral black lurking at the edge of what is clearly a very expensive, very joyful celebration. His professional mourning outfit, perfectly pressed black suit, somber tie, even his special grieving relative pocket square, makes him stand out like a storm cloud at a beach party. "Excuse me, are you lost?" The voice is crisp, professional, and tinged with the kind of controlled irritation that suggests its owner has been dealing with problems all day. Silas turns to find a tall man with sharp gray eyes behind designer glasses, immaculately dressed in a charcoal suit that probably costs more than Silas's rent. The man holds an expensive-looking camera and wears the expression of someone who has zero patience for anything that might disrupt his carefully planned schedule. Silas starts, then notices the tear tracks still drying on his cheeks from his practice session in the car. He'd been preparing for his role as distant cousin overwhelmed by grief, and the evidence of his professional preparation is written all over his face. "I think I might be in the wrong place." The photographer's expression shifts from irritation to something that might be concern, if concern could be delivered through a stare cold enough to freeze champagne. "Are you all right? You look..." He gestures vaguely at Silas's face. "Oh, this." Silas wipes at his cheeks, smearing what's left of his carefully applied tear tracks. "This is just work stuff. I'm fine. Really, I just need to..." "Dante, there you are!" A voice booms across the garden with all the subtlety of a Broadway performer hitting a high note. Both men turn to see a woman in her 50s bearing down on them, like a lavender-draped hurricane. Her silver hair is perfectly coiffed, her jewelry catches the sunlight, and her smile is wide enough to be seen from space. Aunt Cordelia, the photographer, Dante apparently, mutters under his breath with the tone of a man contemplating whether it's too late to run. "I've been looking everywhere for you, darling," Cordelia continues, her voice carrying across half the garden and drawing the attention of nearby guests. "The ceremony starts in 15 minutes, and we need photos of the wedding party by the..." She stops mid-sentence as her gaze lands on Silas, taking in his black suit, his still flushed face, and the way he's standing slightly behind Dante, as if seeking shelter from the social storm. Her expression transforms from wedding coordinator urgency to pure romantic delight. "Oh my goodness," she breathes, pressing one perfectly manicured hand to her chest. "Dante, you didn't tell me you were bringing someone." Silas feels the blood drain from his face. "Oh no, I'm not." "And look at you, you sweet thing," Cordelia continues, completely ignoring his protest. "You're crying already, and the ceremony hasn't even started. That's exactly what Dante needs. Someone who isn't afraid to feel things deeply." I was worried about him being all alone for such a romantic occasion, but this is perfect." "Mrs. Ashworth," Dante says, his voice strained, "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Nonsense. It's written all over both your faces." Cordelia beams at them like she's discovered buried treasure. "The way you're standing together, how emotional you are about the wedding. You're obviously his boyfriend." "Oh, this is wonderful. June will be so pleased that you found someone, Dante. She's been worried about you working too much and never meeting anyone." Several nearby guests have stopped their conversations to watch the unfolding drama. Silas can feel their curious eyes on him, taking in his funeral attire and tear-stained cheeks, probably wondering what kind of person cries before a wedding even starts. "I should really go," Silas manages, taking another step backward and nearly tripping over a decorative garden stone. "This is clearly a private event, and I don't belong." "Don't be ridiculous." Cordelia waves away his protest with the authority of someone accustomed to having her will obeyed. "You're practically family now. Any boyfriend of Dante's is more than welcome. In fact, you're probably exactly what he needs to capture the real emotion of the day. You know how he gets with his camera, all technical perfection and no heart. But look at you. You understand what weddings are really about." Dante's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. "Aunt Cordelia, really, we should discuss—" "No discussion necessary." She claps her hands together with finality. "Oh, this is serendipitous. We had a last-minute cancellation in the guest accommodations. You can share Dante's room at the inn. It'll be so romantic spending the whole wedding weekend together." Silas opens his mouth to protest, then closes it again. The growing crowd of wedding guests continues to watch their little tableau with increasing interest, and he can practically feel their assumptions crystallizing around him. The crying man in black, who's clearly Dante's emotionally supportive boyfriend, here to help the stoic photographer through the overwhelming beauty of his niece's wedding. "Mrs. Ashworth," Dante tries again, but Cordelia is already in motion. "Now, I need you both to come with me immediately. Sage is having an absolute meltdown about the timeline, and we need to get the pre-ceremony photos sorted before June starts panicking about her makeup." She loops one arm through Dante's and reaches for Silas with the other. "Come along, you two. We have a wedding to photograph." Silas finds himself swept forward by Hurricane Cordelia, acutely aware of Dante's rigid posture beside him, and the way the photographer's camera strap has gotten tangled between them in Cordelia's enthusiastic herding. Around them, wedding guests smile and nod approvingly at the couple, and someone calls out, "How sweet." Dante brought his boyfriend. "This is a disaster," Dante mutters under his breath, just loud enough for Silas to hear. "Tell me about it," Silas mutters back, then immediately regrets speaking when several nearby guests coo at their apparent, intimate exchange. As they're marched toward the mansion, Silas catches sight of his reflection in one of the tall windows. Black suit, emotional face, being dragged along by the bride's aunt while the wedding photographer looks like he's contemplating the benefits of witness relocation programs. He's supposed to be at the Hartwell funeral right now, providing professional mourning services for a family who paid him to grieve appropriately for their deceased patriarch. Instead, he's apparently become someone's fake boyfriend at a wedding that probably costs more than he makes in 6 months. His phone buzzes with a text, probably from the actual Hartwell family wondering where their hired mourner has disappeared to. But there's no way to check it while Cordelia maintains her death grip on his arm. "Now," Cordelia announces as they approach a stressed-looking woman with a clipboard and the hollow-eyed expression of someone who's been managing wedding logistics for too long. Sage, darling, I want you to meet Dante's boyfriend. Isn't this exciting? We'll need to adjust the seating chart to put them together at the family table. Sage looks up from her clipboard, takes in Silas's appearance, and asks the question that's probably on everyone's mind. Why is he dressed for a funeral? The silence that follows is deafening. Silas feels his face burn as every eye in the immediate vicinity focuses on his black suit with new understanding. It's a very emotional day for me, he manages, which is technically true, just not in the way anyone assumes. Cordelia squeezes his arm sympathetically. Of course it is, sweetheart. Weddings bring up all sorts of feelings. That's exactly why Dante needs you here, to help him connect with the emotional truth of the moment. Dante makes a sound that might be a suppressed groan. Well, Sage says, consulting her clipboard with the resignation of someone who's seen every possible wedding crisis. I suppose we can work with it. Black is classic, and the contrast might be interesting in the photos, the emotional boyfriend and the stoic photographer. Exactly, Cordelia beams. It's like poetry. Silas seriously considers whether it would be more or less embarrassing to simply run away right now. Probably less, but Cordelia's grip on his arm suggests that escape isn't currently an option. What's your name, honey? Cordelia asks, finally releasing him, but positioning herself so retreat isn't possible. Silas Reeve. Silas. She pronounces it like it's the most beautiful name she's ever heard. How perfect. And what do you do for work, Silas? The moment of truth. Silas glances at Dante, who's watching him with the expression of someone witnessing a slow-motion car accident, then back at Cordelia's expectant face. I work in grief counseling, he says, which is adjacent to the truth if you squint hard enough. Oh my goodness, Cordelia gasps. That explains everything. You help people process their emotions professionally. No wonder you're so in touch with your feelings. And no wonder Dante was drawn to you. You're exactly what he needs to help him capture the real heart of the wedding. Around them, the gathered wedding guests murmur approvingly at this romantic narrative, and Silas realizes with growing horror that he's just been cast as the leading man in Cordelia's real-time romantic drama. We should really discuss the photography timeline, Dante says desperately. Of course. Cordelia claps her hands again. Sage, make sure Silas gets a boutonniere to match Dante's pocket square. They need to look coordinated for the photos. Oh, this is going to be such a beautiful weekend. As she bustles away to terrorize some other aspect of the wedding preparations, Silas and Dante are left standing together in the garden, surrounded by smiling strangers who clearly believe they're witnessing true love. So, Silas says quietly, I'm supposed to be at a funeral right now. I'm supposed to be working, Dante replies, his voice tight. This is really not how I plan to spend my Sunday. Join the club. They stand in awkward silence for a moment, both apparently processing the magnitude of their situation. Your aunt seems enthusiastic, Silas offers. She's not my aunt. She's the bride's aunt. And yes, enthusiastic is one word for it. Dante finally looks directly at him, and Silas is surprised by how much frustration and embarrassment he can read in those gray eyes. Look, I'm sorry about this. I'll figure out how to explain the situation without causing a complete scene. Before or after we share a hotel room? Dante's face goes slightly pale. Right, that... Silas's phone buzzes again, and this time he manages to glance at it. 3 missed calls from the Hartwell family and a text asking if he's been delayed by traffic. I really need to make a phone call, he says. And I really need to figure out how to salvage this photo shoot. They look at each other for a moment, 2 strangers caught in someone else's romantic fantasy, both clearly wondering how exactly their Sunday afternoons went so completely off the rails. Dante! Silas! Cordelia's voice carries across the garden again. Come along, darlings. The ceremony starts in 10 minutes, and we need you both in position. Silas watches as Dante's shoulders slump slightly in defeat. Well, Silas says, adjusting his black tie one more time, I guess we're doing this. I guess we are, Dante agrees, and Silas doesn't miss the way his grip tightens on his camera like it's a lifeline. As they walk toward whatever fresh chaos awaits them, Silas can't help but think that this is either going to be the most embarrassing weekend of his life or the most interesting thing that's happened to him in months. Possibly both. Chapter 2. Damage Control. Dante. Dante Moreau prides himself on maintaining control in any situation. 15 years of professional photography has taught him that the difference between a good shot and a great one often comes down to managing chaos, finding the perfect angle while drunk wedding guests stumble through the frame, capturing intimate moments while vendors crash around in the background, preserving romance while families implode in real time. But this is unprecedented. Are you completely insane? Dante hisses the moment they are out of earshot, dragging the stranger who apparently cries for money toward the rose garden. His grip on his camera equipment is so tight his knuckles have gone white, and he can feel his carefully constructed professional demeanor cracking like old paint. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Silas's phone buzzes with a reminder notification. Hartwell Memorial Service, 2 p.m. His stomach drops as he realizes what this means. I have to make a call, he says, already dialing. Mrs. Hartwell, it's Silas Reeve. I'm so sorry, but I'm not going to make it to your husband's service today. My GPS malfunctioned and sent me to the wrong venue, and by the time I could get to you, the service would be half over. He listens, his face growing apologetic. Of course I'll refund your full payment. Again, I'm deeply sorry for letting you down on such an important day. He hangs up and looks at Dante with the expression of someone whose professional reputation just took a serious hit. Let me guess, Dante says. You're now unemployed for the weekend? And out $300, Silas confirms. Plus, I just failed a grieving widow on one of the most important days of her life. So when I said I desperately need this fake boyfriend arrangement to work, he gestures helplessly. I really, really need this to work. The man, Silas, his brain supplies unhelpfully, doesn't have the decency to look appropriately mortified. Instead, he's dabbing at his face with a handkerchief that's already damp from whatever emotional crisis sent him fleeing into the wrong venue. Look, I'm sorry about the confusion, but technically you're the one who grabbed my arm and started that whole conversation. I was trying to get you to stop sobbing during the bride's entrance. Dante's voice climbs higher than he'd prefer, but the absurdity of the situation has shattered his usual composure. This is the Ashworth-Dunwood wedding. Do you understand what that means? Pearl Ashworth is on the board of 3 different country clubs. Winston Ashworth owns half the commercial real estate in the city, and June Ashworth Dunwood is marrying into the Dunwood hotel empire. This wedding has been featured in Metropolitan Bride magazine, and now everyone thinks I'm dating a professional. He stops, the words catching in his throat. What did you say you do exactly? Silas straightens his black tie with more dignity than anyone wearing tear-stained formal wear should possess. I'm a professional mourner. I attend funerals and memorial services to provide appropriate emotional atmosphere for families who need it. The words hit Dante like a physical blow. You get paid to cry at funerals? It's a legitimate service industry, Silas says. And there's something defensive in his tone now that makes Dante's photographer brain automatically catalog the micro-expressions. The slight tightening around his warm brown eyes, the way his shoulders square despite his obvious embarrassment. Grief is complicated, and not everyone processes it the same way. Some families want the comfort of knowing their loved one is being properly mourned, even if distant relatives can't attend, or I don't care about your business model. Dante cuts him off, though some traitorous part of his mind files away the information anyway. The man makes a living from other people's pain, which should be disturbing, but there's something in his voice when he talks about families and comfort that suggests genuine care rather than exploitation. At least Silas has found a way to monetize authentic emotion, however unconventional. Dante's own career feels suddenly hollow by comparison. 15 years of capturing other people's joy, while his father's increasingly pointed emails about artistic achievement pile up unread in his inbox. I care about the fact that in approximately 30 minutes, I need to photograph the most important wedding of my career. And instead of focusing on lighting and composition, I'm going to be wondering if my supposed boyfriend is about to start weeping during the ceremony. Silas blinks. Your supposed what now? Before Dante can answer, the unmistakable sound of Cordelia Ashworth's voice carries across the garden like an air raid siren. Dante, where did you disappear to with your handsome young man? They both freeze. Through the carefully manicured hedges, Dante can see Cordelia approaching, with the bride and groom in tow, her elaborate fascinator bobbing with each determined step. June looks radiant but slightly overwhelmed in her pre-ceremony glow, while Fletcher appears to be fighting back laughter at something Cordelia has undoubtedly said. Oh God, Dante mutters. They're coming over here. Should we run? Silas asks, and the question is so absurd that Dante almost laughs despite himself. Where exactly do you suggest we go? I have equipment worth more than your car parked at this venue, and I'm contractually obligated to document every moment of this weekend. You don't know what my car is worth, Silas points out, which is true but irrelevant. Dante, darling! Cordelia's voice is getting closer. We simply must get you and your beau settled in your room before the ceremony begins. I've spoken with Sage about the arrangements. Dante's stomach drops. In all the chaos, he'd forgotten about the accommodation situation. The Ashworth-Dunwood wedding is a destination event, with most guests staying at the Grand Willowbrook Inn for the full weekend experience. As the photographer, he'd been provided with a room as part of his package. A single room. Listen, he says quickly, turning to Silas with what he hopes is a reasonable expression. I need this job. Not just for the money, though the Ashworths pay very well, but for my portfolio. This wedding is going to be featured in every major publication, and the networking opportunities alone could set up my business for the next 5 years. If we have to pretend to be... He struggles with the words. If we have to maintain this misunderstanding for the weekend, I'll make it worth your while. Silas studies him with those disconcertingly perceptive eyes. Worth my while how? Money, Dante says bluntly. Whatever you were going to make at your funeral today, I'll double it. You don't know what I charge, Silas says, echoing his earlier comment about the car. I don't care what you charge. I can afford it. There's a moment of silence where Silas seems to be weighing his options. Dante finds himself cataloging details again. The way Silas's unruly dark curls catch the afternoon light, the olive complexion that suggests Mediterranean heritage, the lean build that his well-tailored black suit can't quite disguise. For someone who makes a living attending funerals, he has surprisingly kind eyes. There they are. Cordelia's voice announces their discovery before either of them can respond. June Fletcher, come meet Dante's mysterious boyfriend properly. June Ashworth Dunwood approaches with the particular careful grace of someone wearing a dress worth more than most people's cars. Even in her pre-ceremony state, she's genuinely beautiful, with warm eyes and a smile that seems to reach everyone around her. Fletcher is more relaxed, handsome in that effortless way that comes from good genetics and expensive grooming, and he's watching the developing situation with obvious amusement. I'm so sorry about earlier, June says, directing her apology to Silas. Aunt Cordelia can be enthusiastic about introductions. I hope we didn't overwhelm you. Not at all, Silas says, and Dante is surprised by how smoothly he recovers his composure. Congratulations on your wedding. You look absolutely radiant. The compliment is delivered with such genuine warmth that June actually blushes. Thank you. Aunt Cordelia tells me you and Dante have been together for several months. It's wonderful that he brought you to share this weekend with us. Dante opens his mouth to correct the timeline, then closes it again when he realizes he has no idea what story Cordelia has already constructed. Several months? How did she arrive at that number? It's been a beautiful relationship to witness, Silas says, and there's something in his tone that suggests he's enjoying this improvisation more than he should. Dante has such an artistic soul. The way he sees beauty in everyday moments is really quite extraordinary. Fletcher grins. That's definitely our Dante. The man could make a grocery store look romantic if you gave him the right lens. Actually, Cordelia interjects, speaking of arrangements, Sage has some news about the hotel situation. As if summoned by her name, Sage appears from behind a carefully sculpted topiary. The wedding planner is a study in controlled efficiency, with her tablet clutched against her chest, and her expression suggesting she's been putting out fires all morning. Mr. Moreau, she says, I'm afraid there's been a complication with the accommodations. The inn had an unexpected influx of guests from a corporate retreat that was supposed to end yesterday, and we're dealing with an overbooking situation. Dante's heart sinks. My room? Still available, Sage assures him quickly, but we've had to consolidate some of the guest arrangements. All couples have been asked to share rooms to accommodate the full guest list. I hope that won't be a problem. The silence that follows feels like it stretches for an eternity. Dante can feel everyone's eyes on him, waiting for his response. Beside him, Silas has gone very still. Of course not, Dante hears himself say. We're perfectly comfortable sharing. Wonderful! Cordelia claps her hands together. Room 237 at the inn. Such a romantic space with that lovely view of the gardens. You'll have the perfect backdrop for your own private moments. How thoughtful, Silas murmurs, and Dante can't tell if he's being sarcastic. Now then, June says, glancing at her phone, I should get back to the bridal suite for final preparations. The ceremony starts in an hour, and I still need to do my final touch-ups. She looks between Dante and Silas with genuine warmth. I'm so glad you're both here to share this with us. After the bride, groom, and aunt disappear back toward the main venue, Dante and Silas are left alone in the garden again. The silence feels different now, heavier with implications and unspoken questions. So, Silas says finally, room 237. One bed, Dante says grimly. I guarantee it's one bed. These boutique hotels always assume couples want the romantic package. And you're sure about this? About maintaining the pretense for the entire weekend? Dante looks back toward Willowbrook Estate, where he can see guests beginning to gather for the ceremony. His equipment is set up, his schedule is planned, and his professional reputation is hanging in the balance. 3 days from now, if everything goes according to plan, he'll have the kind of portfolio piece that could transform his career. I'm sure, he says. Are you? Silas considers this, then extends his hand with mock formality. Silas Reeve, your devoted boyfriend for the weekend. Dante shakes the offered hand, surprised by the warmth of Silas's grip and the calluses that suggest some kind of manual work beyond professional mourning. Dante Moreau, your grateful fake significant other. Should we discuss terms and conditions? Silas asks. I feel like fake relationships probably have rules. Definitely, Dante agrees. But first, I need to photograph a wedding ceremony. Can you handle sitting through a romantic ceremony without crying? Because if Cordelia sees you sobbing during the vows, she's going to assume I'm a terrible boyfriend who doesn't comfort you properly. Silas grins, and the expression transforms his entire face, from handsome to devastating. Don't worry, I only cry on command at funerals. Weddings are supposed to be happy. I think I can manage to look appropriately joyful for your reputation. Good, Dante says, though he's oddly distracted by that smile. Because we have approximately 57 minutes to figure out how to convince a room full of strangers that we're madly in love. How hard can it be? Silas asks. Dante suspects they're both about to find out. Chapter 3. Setting the ground rules. S-I-L-A. S. Room 237 at the Grand Willowbrook Inn is exactly the kind of place that would normally make Silas smile. All antique charm and soft lighting, with a window seat overlooking the rose gardens, and enough romantic atmosphere to make even the most cynical person believe in love at first sight. Unfortunately, the room's single king-sized bed and intimate seating area are currently making both him and Dante stare at each other like they're defusing a bomb. I can take the window seat, Silas offers, setting his small overnight bag on the upholstered bench. I'm used to sleeping in uncomfortable places. Funeral homes aren't exactly known for their luxury accommodations during overnight vigils. Dante winces. Do you have to mention death every 5 minutes? Sorry, occupational hazard. Silas runs a hand through his unruly curls. I know my job is weird. Most people think I'm either crazy or morbid or both. Something in Dante's expression softens slightly as he places his expensive leather camera bag on the dresser with military precision. I didn't say it was weird. I said you mention it constantly. Because it's my life. Silas sits on the edge of the bed, then immediately stands again when he realizes how that might look. Look, I know this situation is bizarre, but I really need this to work. That client I mentioned, Mrs. Henderson hired me to attend her husband's memorial service next week, and she's paying me 3 months' rent. If I don't show up because I can't afford the train ticket, he trails off, not wanting to admit that he'll probably have to move back in with his sister B and listen to her well-meaning lectures about finding a normal job. Again. Dante studies him with those sharp gray eyes. You're really that desperate for money? I prefer financially challenged, Silas says with a weak smile. But yes, the professional mourning business has its ups and downs. Mostly downs lately. And you think pretending to be my boyfriend for a weekend will solve your problems? I think it might buy me some time to figure out my next move. Silas fidgets with his black tie. Plus, Cordelia seems determined to make this work whether we cooperate or not. At least this way we have some control over the situation. Dante considers this while hanging his suit jacket in the closet, with the kind of precise movements that suggest he color codes his sock drawer. Fine, but we need rules. Rules? Boundaries, expectations, a consistent story. Dante pulls out a small notebook from his camera bag. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it properly. Of course he wants to plan everything with military precision. Dante can't decide if Silas finds this endearing or terrifying. Okay, what kind of rules? Dante clicks his pen. First, minimal physical contact. Hand-holding when absolutely necessary, maybe an arm around shoulders. Nothing more intimate than that. Got it. Keep our hands to ourselves. Silas pauses. What about kissing? Cordelia seems like the type who might expect no kissing. Dante's voice is firm. We can fake intimacy without actual contact. Silas nods, trying to ignore the tiny stab of disappointment. Not that he wants to kiss the grumpy photographer. It's just that Dante has really nice lips, and when he's not scowling, his face is actually quite... Second, Dante continues, oblivious to Silas's wandering thoughts. We need a consistent backstory. How long we've been dating, how we met, that sort of thing. 6 months, Silas suggests. Long enough to be serious, but not so long that people expect us to know everything about each other. And we met through work. Something vague enough that we don't have to elaborate? We could say you photographed a memorial service I was working, Silas offers. It's technically possible, and it explains why you'd be comfortable with my job. Dante makes a note. Third, no personal questions. We're here to play a role, not to get to know each other. This rule stings more than the no kissing one, though Silas can't quite figure out why. Right, strictly business. Fourth, we stick together during all wedding events. If one of us leaves, we both leave. The last thing we need is for someone to corner either of us alone and start asking questions we can't answer. Makes sense. Silas watches Dante write everything down in neat, precise handwriting. Anything else? We split the room cost, and if this falls apart and causes me professional embarrassment, you're covering my lost business. Deal. Silas extends his hand for a shake, then realizes that probably violates the minimal contact rule. I mean, agreed. Dante looks at his outstretched hand for a moment, then shakes it briefly. His grip is firm and warm, and Silas notices a small scar on his knuckle that looks like it might have come from a camera strap. So, Silas says after Dante releases his hand, what do I need to know about you? For the fake boyfriend performance, I mean. I'm 31. I've been doing wedding photography for 8 years. I live downtown. Dante's tone is clipped, professional. I don't have any hobbies, I don't cook, and I prefer silence to small talk. Wow, you really know how to sell yourself? Silas grins. Good thing I'm supposed to be madly in love with you despite your sparkling personality. Dante's mouth twitches like he might be fighting a smile. What about you? Besides the obvious career choice, 28, originally from Boston, but I moved here 3 years ago. I have a sister named B who's a paramedic and thinks I'm insane. I like plants, terrible reality TV, and putting too much hot sauce on everything. Silas settles cross-legged on the window seat. Oh, and I cry at dog food commercials, so the emotional thing isn't just professional. Of course you do. But Dante doesn't sound as disapproving as he did earlier. A sharp knock on the door interrupts whatever Dante might have said next. Yo, Dante? You in there? Dante's jaw tightens. That's Knox. The best man? The best man who has no concept of appropriate boundaries. Dante moves toward the door. Let me handle this. But when Dante opens the door, Knox Fitzgerald pushes past him into the room with the confidence of someone who's never met a social cue he couldn't ignore. He's tall and broad-shouldered with sandy hair and the kind of easy smile that probably gets him out of trouble more often than it should. Dude, I've been looking everywhere for... Knox stops mid-sentence when he spots Silas on the window seat. His eyes light up like a kid who just discovered a new toy. You're the death guy. I prefer professional mourner, Silas says carefully. Same thing, right? Knox plops down in the room's single armchair without invitation. This is so cool. I've never met anyone in the death industry before. Knox, Dante's voice carries a warning. We were just... So what's the weirdest funeral you've ever worked? Knox interrupts, leaning forward eagerly. Like, have you ever had to cry at a really awkward memorial? What's your technique? Do you think about sad stuff or just turn on the waterworks on command? Silas blinks. It's not really about technique. It's about honoring the deceased and supporting the grieving family. But you must have some crazy stories, right? Like, what's the most dramatic family you've worked with? Any inheritance drama? Secret affairs revealed during eulogies? Knox? Dante's voice is sharp now. That's enough. What? I'm just curious. Knox turns back to Silas with undiminished enthusiasm. Oh, have you ever worked a murder victim's funeral? Do the cops show up to watch for suspicious behavior? I heard they do that sometimes. Silas feels heat creep up his neck. He's used to people finding his job strange, but Knox's fascination feels invasive, like he's being treated as entertainment rather than a person. I don't really discuss specific clients, or what about cremations? Do you attend those too? Is it weird being there when they actually burn the body? Okay, that's it. Dante steps between Knox and Silas, his photographer's reflexes apparently extending to social situations. Knox, get out. Come on, I'm just asking questions. You're being inappropriate. Dante's tone could freeze water. Silas isn't here to satisfy your morbid curiosity. Knox holds up his hands in surrender, though his grin suggests he's more amused than apologetic. Fine, fine. But we're definitely talking more later, Death Guy. This is fascinating stuff. He heads for the door, then pauses. Oh, Dante? Cordelia wants all the couples to meet in the lobby at 7 for some kind of group dinner thing. Something about strengthening romantic bonds through shared experiences. Knox makes air quotes around the phrase, should be fun. And with that, he's gone, leaving Silas and Dante alone with the sound of the door clicking shut. I'm sorry about that, Dante says quietly. Knox means well, but he has the social awareness of a golden retriever. Silas tries to smile, but Knox's questions have left him feeling exposed and defensive. It's fine. I'm used to it. People either think my job is fascinating or disgusting. Not much middle ground. For what it's worth, Dante says, settling on the edge of the bed. What you do sounds like it actually helps people. That matters. The unexpected kindness in his voice makes Silas's chest feel warm. Thanks. That actually means a lot. Before either of them can say anything else, another knock interrupts the moment. This time it's softer, more polite. Room service, calls a cheerful voice. Dante frowns. We didn't order anything. When he opens the door, Diego Vasquez stands in the hallway, holding a silver tray with a bottle of champagne and two glasses. Compliments of the hotel, Diego says with a knowing smile. For our favorite couple. Congratulations on your beautiful relationship. Oh, we don't need, Dante starts. Nonsense. Diego pushes the tray into Dante's hands. Love should be celebrated, especially love that brings such joy to family members like Senora Cordelia. Silas catches Dante's eye over Diego's shoulder and sees his own thought reflected there. They're really committed to this charade now. Thank you, Silas says when Dante seems too stunned to respond. That's very thoughtful. Enjoy your evening, gentlemen, and remember, if you need anything at all to make your stay more romantic, just call the front desk. Diego winks and disappears down the hallway. Dante closes the door and stares at the champagne bottle like it might explode. Well, Silas says, trying to lighten the mood, I guess we're really selling it. This is insane, Dante mutters. We've been fake dating for 3 hours and people are already sending us congratulatory champagne. Could be worse. Knox could have brought the champagne. He probably would have asked if I've ever attended a funeral where someone was poisoned. Dante's mouth quirks upward. Don't give him ideas. Silas laughs, and some of the tension from Knox's inappropriate questions finally starts to fade. So, fake romantic dinner at 7? Apparently. Dante sets the champagne on the dresser. Are you ready for more public performance? Are you? Silas counters. Because no offense, but you looked like you were going to pass out when Cordelia hugged you earlier. I don't like being touched by strangers. What about being touched by fake boyfriends? Dante's cheeks flush slightly. I guess we'll find out. Silas grins. Don't worry, I'll try to keep the fake PDA to a minimum. I know it's not your favorite thing. It's not that I don't like... Dante trails off, then shakes his head. Never mind. We should get ready for dinner. Silas wants to ask what he was going to say, but rule number 3 is no personal questions. So instead he watches Dante pull fresh clothes from his precisely packed suitcase and wonders how someone can make even unpacking look like an art form. Dante? What? For what it's worth, I think we might actually be able to pull this off. Dante pauses in his unpacking. What makes you say that? The way you defended me from Knox, it seemed... Silas searches for the right word. Natural, like you actually cared. I did care. Dante's voice is quiet. Nobody deserves to be interrogated like that. Silas feels that warm feeling in his chest again. See? Natural protective boyfriend instincts. We might be better at this fake dating thing than we thought. Dante doesn't respond, but Silas catches him almost smiling in the mirror's reflection as he straightens his tie. Maybe this weekend won't be a complete disaster after all. Chapter 4. The rehearsal performance. Dante. Dante adjusts his tie for the 3rd time in as many minutes, staring at his reflection in room 237's antique mirror. The rehearsal dinner starts in 10 minutes, and his stomach feels like it's hosting its own personal earthquake. You're going to wear a groove in that tie if you keep fiddling with it, Silas observes from where he's sitting on the window seat, pulling on his dress shoes. He's traded his funeral black for charcoal gray slacks and a deep burgundy button-down that makes his warm brown eyes look impossibly rich. I don't fiddle, Dante replies automatically, then immediately proves himself wrong by adjusting his collar. I'm ensuring everything is properly arranged. Right, and I'm just sitting here breathing normally while definitely not practicing coupley small talk in my head. Silas stands and smooths down his shirt. How do I look? Appropriately boyfriendish? Dante turns to give him a professional assessment and promptly forgets how to form words. The burgundy shirt brings out the golden undertones in Silas's olive complexion, and he's styled his usually unruly curls into something that looks deliberately tousled rather than accidentally chaotic. He looks warm, approachable, like the kind of person who gives excellent hugs and remembers your birthday. Like the kind of person Dante would absolutely want to date if he were the type of person who dated anyone at all. You look fine, Dante manages, then clears his throat. Appropriate for the situation. Silas's grin could power the entire hotel. Wow, Dante, your enthusiasm is overwhelming, really sweeping me off my feet here. I'm not trying to... Dante stops, recognizing the teasing tone. Heat creeps up his neck. You know what I meant. I do. Silas's expression softens. And for what it's worth, you look devastatingly handsome in that navy suit. Very successful wedding photographer who definitely has his life together and isn't at all panicking about pretending to be in love. I'm not panicking. Sure, and I'm not mentally rehearsing how to hold your hand without making it weird. They stare at each other for a moment, and Dante realizes this is exactly the problem. Somehow, in the space of 24 hours, Silas has gone from annoying disruption to this. This person who makes him laugh despite himself, who stood up to Knox's inappropriate questions with dignity, who offered to sleep on an uncomfortable window seat without complaint. This person who's looking at him like he actually wants to hold Dante's hand, weird or not. A knock on the door saves him from that particular spiral. Gentlemen, Cordelia's voice booms through the wood. The happy couples are gathering in the lobby. Showtime, Silas murmurs, and offers Dante his arm with theatrical gallantry. Shall we go pretend to be madly in love? Dante takes the offered arm, telling himself the little flutter in his chest is just performance anxiety. Let's get this over with. The conservatory has been transformed into something from a fairy tale. Fairy lights twinkle between exotic palm fronds, and round tables draped in ivory linens are scattered throughout the glass-walled space. String quartet music drifts through the warm air, mixing with the gentle sound of conversation and clinking glasses. It's exactly the kind of romantic setting Dante usually photographs from behind his camera, never as a participant. Oh my, Silas breathes beside him, and Dante follows his gaze to see the way the evening light filters through the glass ceiling, casting everything in a golden glow. This is gorgeous. The lighting is decent, Dante agrees, automatically cataloging angles and compositions. Though the mixed light sources will be challenging for... Dante. Silas's hand settles warm on his arm. You're not working tonight. You're attending a rehearsal dinner with your devastatingly charming boyfriend. Right. Boyfriend. Dante's supposed devastatingly charming boyfriend, who's currently smiling at him like he hung the moon and personally arranged all those fairy lights. There you are. Cordelia descends upon them in a whirlwind of emerald silk and dramatic gestures. Don't you two look absolutely precious together? Sage, look at them. Could they be any more adorable? Sage appears at Cordelia's elbow, her smile warm but considerably more restrained. You both look lovely. Dante, that navy suits you beautifully. And Silas, welcome to your first Ashworth family event. I hope you're prepared for... intensity. I actually do quite well with emotional intensity, Silas replies easily. It's sort of my specialty. Cordelia clasps her hands together. Oh, that's perfect. Because tonight we're doing a couples sharing circle after dinner. Each couple will tell the story of how they met, and we'll all celebrate the beautiful varieties of love. Dante's blood turns to ice water. A sharing... what? Circle, darling, where everyone sits in a big circle and shares their love stories. It's going to be magical. Cordelia's eyes gleam with the fervor of someone who's about to orchestrate maximum romantic chaos. I got the idea from a workshop I attended on intentional intimacy and authentic connection. That sounds... Dante's throat feels like sandpaper. Public speaking about emotions, his absolute nightmare scenario. Unnecessary. It sounds wonderful, Silas says smoothly, his hand finding Dante's and squeezing gently. We love talking about how we met. Dante stares at him. They'd agreed on a basic story, met through work 6 months ago, but they certainly hadn't practiced performing it for an audience. Meanwhile, Silas looks completely relaxed, like he tells fabricated love stories every day, which Dante realizes with a sinking feeling he probably does. Professional mourning probably requires exactly this kind of emotional performance. Excellent, Cordelia beams. Now, let me introduce you to everyone. River, Knox, come meet Dante's boyfriend. The next 20 minutes pass in a blur of introductions and small talk. Dante watches in fascination as Silas effortlessly charms every person they encounter. He asks River about her work as a marine biologist, compliments Pearl Ashworth on her stunning dress, and even manages to redirect Knox's inevitable death-related questions into a discussion about the philosophical meaning of celebration. Your boyfriend is delightful, Reverend Iris Blackwood observes when she approaches their table before dinner. She's a striking woman in her 40s with silver-streaked hair and knowing eyes that make Dante immediately uncomfortable. You're very lucky, Dante. Thank you, Dante replies carefully. There's something in her tone that suggests she's not just making polite conversation. It's wonderful to see someone help you come out of your shell, she continues, watching as Silas animatedly discusses something with Fletcher across the table. Photography can be such a solitary profession. It's important to have someone who draws you into the world of the living. Dante's throat tightens. I'm plenty involved in the world of the living. Of course. Her smile is gentle but penetrating, though I imagine it's easy to hide behind the camera. Much safer to observe emotion than to feel it directly. Before Dante can figure out how to respond to that uncomfortably accurate observation, Sage stands and taps her wine glass with a fork. If I could have everyone's attention, Sage announces, Cordelia has a special activity planned for after dinner. Cordelia rises, practically vibrating with enthusiasm. As I mentioned, we're going to share our love stories. Each couple will tell us how they met and what makes their relationship special. It's going to be absolutely magical. Dante's palms start sweating. Around the room, other couples are smiling and whispering to each other, clearly excited about the opportunity. June and Fletcher look adorable and romantic. River and her girlfriend Maya are holding hands and grinning. Even Pearl and Winston Ashworth, married for 30 years, are exchanging fond glances. And then there's Dante, who's about to have to publicly perform romantic emotion about a fake relationship with a man he met yesterday. A man who, he's suddenly realizing, he's been watching all evening with something that feels suspiciously like genuine affection. Hey. Silas's voice is quiet, meant only for him. You okay? You look like you're about to bolt. I don't bolt, Dante says automatically, though his legs are definitely considering it. Public speaking not your thing? Dante manages a tight laugh. Public speaking about emotions is not my thing. I don't do feelings, publicly or privately, really. Silas studies his face, and Dante has the unsettling sensation of being truly seen. What if I take the lead? You can just sit there looking gorgeous and mysterious while I do the talking. You don't have to. Dante! Silas's hand covers his on the table, warm and steady. We're a team, remember? I've got this. There's something in his voice, some combination of confidence and kindness, that makes Dante's chest feel strange and tight. He nods, not trusting his voice. Dinner passes in a pleasant haze of surprisingly good food and easy conversation. Silas somehow manages to include Dante in every discussion without making him feel pressured to contribute more than he's comfortable with. When Knox starts getting too personal again, Silas deflects with humor. When Pearl asks about their future plans, Silas gives a charmingly vague answer about taking things one day at a time. He's, Dante realizes with growing alarm, absolutely perfect at this. Not just the performance aspect, but the actual social dynamics. He makes everyone feel included and valued, draws out shy people and redirects difficult ones, all while maintaining an easy warmth that never feels fake. No wonder people hire him to mourn their loved ones. He probably makes them feel genuinely comforted. All right, everyone. Cordelia stands again as dessert plates are cleared away. Time for our sharing circle. Let's all move to the lounge area. The wedding guests arrange themselves in a loose circle on the various couches and chairs scattered around the conservatory's lounge space. Fairy lights twinkle overhead, and the string quartet has shifted to soft background music. It would be romantic if Dante weren't about to die of anxiety. "Who wants to go first?" Cordelia asks, looking around the circle with predatory enthusiasm. "We will," June volunteers, taking Fletcher's hand. They launch into the story of meeting in a coffee shop, how Fletcher spilled his latte on June's textbook, how they spent the afternoon helping her rewrite her wet notes. It's sweet and genuine and makes everyone smile. River and Maya share their story of meeting at an environmental protest, bonding over their shared passion for ocean conservation. Winston tells the tale of how he proposed to Pearl during a thunderstorm because he couldn't wait for perfect weather. Each story is charming and heartfelt, and with each one, Dante feels his anxiety ratcheting higher. These are real couples sharing real stories. He and Silas are about to lie to a room full of people who've been nothing but kind to them. "Silas and Dante," Cordelia announces with barely contained glee. "You're next." Every eye in the room turns to them. Dante's mouth goes completely dry. Beside him, Silas sits up straighter, his hand finding Dante's again. "Well," Silas begins, his voice warm and confident, "our story is a little unconventional." Dante stares at him in panic. They'd agreed on a basic outline, work event 6 months ago, but nothing detailed enough for a performance like this. "We met at a celebration of life event," Silas continues, and Dante realizes he's using the same phrase from earlier. Technically true if you count the wedding as a celebration of life. "I was there in my professional capacity, and Dante was capturing the important moments." Also technically true. Dante starts to relax slightly. "I remember thinking," Silas says, his voice growing softer, more intimate, "that there was something so beautiful about the way he worked. He wasn't just taking pictures. He was preserving emotion, freezing these moments of joy and love so they could last forever. That's not about their fake meeting. That's about yesterday, about watching Dante work at the wedding." Dante's breath catches. "And I was fascinated by this man who understood the importance of witnessing people's most significant moments," Silas continues, his eyes meeting Dante's, "who treated every emotion, grief, joy, love, with the same reverence and care." The room has gone very quiet. Dante can hear his own heartbeat. "I was terrified to talk to him," Silas admits with a self-deprecating laugh. "He seemed so composed, so professional. And there I was, crying at a stranger's event, because that's literally my job. I thought he'd think I was ridiculous." "I did think you were ridiculous," Dante finds himself saying, then immediately flinches. "I mean..." The room laughs, but not unkindly. Silas grins at him. "He thought I was ridiculous," Silas agrees cheerfully, "but he talked to me anyway. And I discovered that under all that professional composure was someone incredibly thoughtful and kind. Someone who notices everything but judges nothing." Dante's chest feels tight again, but in a completely different way from the anxiety. Because that's how Silas actually sees him. Not as the emotionally constipated control freak he knows himself to be, but as someone thoughtful. Kind. "It took me 3 months to work up the courage to ask him out," Silas continues, "because I was convinced someone that talented and successful would never want to date a professional mourner. But when I finally did..." He pauses, looking at Dante with such warmth that several people in the circle actually sigh. "He said yes. And he's been teaching me ever since that there's beauty in every emotion, even the difficult ones. That life is richer when you let yourself feel everything fully." The circle erupts in gentle applause and appreciative murmurs. Dante stares at Silas, completely speechless. Because somehow, in the space of a fabricated love story, Silas has managed to say things that feel more genuine than anything Dante's ever heard about himself. "Oh my goodness," Cordelia says, pressing her hands to her chest. "That was absolutely beautiful. The way you two look at each other, it's like something out of a movie." "Young love," Pearl sighs contentedly. "So wonderful to witness." "You can tell they're completely smitten," River adds with a knowing smile. As the conversation moves on to the next couple, Dante sits in stunned silence. Because looking around the circle, seeing the warm smiles and approving nods, he realizes something terrifying. Everyone believes it. The story, the emotion, the connection between them. They believe it completely because watching Silas tell it, Dante almost believed it himself. And the most terrifying part is how much he wants it to be true. Later, as they walk back to the hotel through the garden paths lit by lanterns, Dante finally finds his voice. That was... He stops, not sure how to finish the sentence. Completely terrifying? Silas suggests. Slightly mortifying? Surprisingly fun? Convincing, Dante says quietly. Very convincing. They've reached the hotel lobby where Diego nods to them with professional courtesy and a knowing smile. In the elevator, they stand on opposite sides of the small space, the day's performance anxiety replaced by something else entirely. You're good at that, Dante says as they reach their floor. The storytelling thing. Making people believe. It's not about making them believe, Silas replies softly as Dante unlocks their room door. It's about finding the truth inside the story. Dante pauses with his hand on the doorknob. What truth? Silas meets his eyes, and for a moment, the air between them feels charged with possibility. That some connections are worth celebrating, he says simply. Even the unexpected ones. Inside room 237, they get ready for bed with the same careful politeness they've established. But something has shifted. When Dante emerges from the bathroom in his pajamas, he finds Silas already settled on the window seat with a pillow and one of the extra blankets. Thank you, Dante says suddenly, for tonight, for taking the lead with all of that. Silas looks up from his phone. You don't have to thank me. We're in this together, remember? Still, I know public speaking isn't exactly a normal part of fake dating. Maybe not. But watching you realize that people see you as someone worth celebrating? Silas's smile is soft in the lamplight. That felt pretty real to me. Dante stands there in his pajamas, looking at this man who somehow managed to make him feel genuinely valued in front of a room full of strangers, and thinks that maybe, just maybe, the most dangerous part of this fake relationship isn't getting caught. It's how much he's starting to hope they won't. Chapter 5. Mourning Revelations. Silas. Silas wakes to the urgent buzzing of his phone and Dante's muffled curse from somewhere near the bathroom. The window seat cushions have molded themselves to his spine in ways that suggest he'll be walking like a question mark for the rest of the weekend. But the soft morning light streaming through the rose garden makes the discomfort worth it. Silas. Dante's voice carries a note of panic that cuts through his drowsy contentment. Your phone's been going off for 5 minutes. He fumbles for the device, squinting at an unknown number. Wedding emergencies at 7:23 a.m. are never good news in his line of work, though usually they involve deceased relatives, not... Mr. Reeve? The voice on the other end is professionally calm, with an undercurrent of barely contained hysteria. This is Sage Wellington, the wedding coordinator for the Ashworth Dunwood celebration. I'm so sorry to call this early, but we have a situation. Silas sits up straighter, his professional crisis management instincts kicking in. What kind of situation? The wedding cake. Sage's voice cracks slightly. There's been an accident in the hotel kitchen. A grease fire. The cake is, well, it's not salvageable. Oh no. Silas glances toward the bathroom, where he can hear Dante brushing his teeth. How can I help? Cordelia mentioned that you and Mr. Moreau were so supportive yesterday with the room arrangements, and frankly, we're desperate. The ceremony is in 6 hours, and June is... Sage pauses, and Silas can hear muffled sobbing in the background. She's not taking this well. We'll be right there, Silas says, already swinging his legs off the window seat. Which room? The bridal suite. 3rd floor, room 312. And Mr. Reeve? Thank you. I know this isn't your responsibility, but... Hey, Silas interrupts gently. Everyone deserves to have their day go as smoothly as possible. We'll figure this out. After hanging up, he turns to find Dante emerging from the bathroom, hair still damp and looking unfairly attractive in his undershirt and dress pants. Wedding crisis? Dante asks, apparently reading his expression. Wedding cake crisis, kitchen fire, bride in meltdown mode. Silas stands, working the kinks out of his spine. Sage asked if we could help. Dante pauses in the middle of reaching for his shirt. She asked both of us? As a couple? Apparently our supportive partnership made an impression yesterday. Silas grins despite the situation. Ready for our first test as a crisis management team? I photograph weddings, not save them, Dante protests, but he's already pulling on his shirt with the efficient movements of someone preparing for action. Good thing I specialize in helping people through disasters. Silas smooths down his wrinkled clothes from yesterday, though usually they involve different kinds of endings. The bridal suite looks like a tornado hit a pastry shop. June sits on the elegant settee in her silk robe and hair curlers, clutching a tissue box while tears stream down her face. Around her, bridesmaids flutter in various states of panic, offering comfort that only seems to make things worse. It was going to be perfect, June sobs as Silas and Dante enter. 5 tiers with hand-piped roses and real gold leaf accents. We ordered it 6 months ago, and now there's nothing. Nothing. Sage appears at their elbows looking frazzled in a way that suggests she's been managing wedding chaos since dawn. The kitchen fire started around 6 a.m. By the time they got it contained, the entire cake was destroyed. Every bakery within 50 miles is either closed for Sunday or already committed to other events. Dante surveys the room with his photographer's eye, taking in the scope of the crisis. What about grocery stores? Chain bakeries? We tried. Nothing that could handle a wedding this size on such short notice. Sage consults her tablet. I've called 17 places. The best I can do is a sheet cake from the hotel restaurant, but it's... She trails off diplomatically. Not exactly 5-tier hand-piped perfection, Silas fills in. He settles beside June on the settee, his voice gentle. June, I know this feels devastating right now, but can I tell you something? She looks up at him with red-rimmed eyes. What? In my line of work, I see a lot of families dealing with unexpected changes to important ceremonies. And you know what I've learned? The day isn't about the cake. It's about you and Fletcher promising to love each other forever. Everything else is just decoration. But the pictures, June whispers, and the reception. Everyone's expecting to celebrate your marriage. Dante interrupts quietly. And that's still happening, right? You're still marrying Fletcher today? A small smile breaks through June's tears. Yes, I am. Then we figure out the rest. Silas takes her hands gently. What if instead of trying to recreate what you lost, we create something new? Something that tells the story of how you two can handle anything together. Dante pulls out his phone, and Silas can practically see his artistic brain shifting into problem-solving mode. What if we do multiple smaller cakes? Different flavors, different styles, arranged together. Like a cake collection instead of one traditional cake, Silas adds, warming to the idea. Each one represents something different about your relationship. Sage looks up from her tablet, hope creeping into her expression. That could actually work. If we can source several smaller cakes. I know someone, Dante says suddenly. My neighbor runs a small bakery. She specializes in artistic individual cakes. If I call her now? He's already dialing. Maria, it's Dante from 4B. I know it's early, but I have an emergency. Silas watches Dante pace the room, his voice shifting into the same focused intensity he brings to photography. Professional competence, but with an underlying warmth that suggests he genuinely cares about solving this problem. She can do it, Dante announces after a rapid-fire conversation in what sounds like fluent Spanish. 6 individual cakes, different flavors and designs, delivered by noon. They won't match your original design, but they'll be beautiful. And artistic, Silas adds, which actually fits you and Fletcher better than traditional, doesn't it? You two are all about creating your own path. June's face brightens. Fletcher always said he thought traditional wedding cakes were boring. This way, your guests can choose their favorite flavor, Sage says, already making notes. And the photos will be unique, memorable. Better than what anyone else has done, Dante finishes. Maria's work is incredible, trust me. June stands, wiping her eyes and suddenly looking more like the composed bride from yesterday. Okay, yes, let's do it. But how do we arrange them? Display them? Silas and Dante exchange a look, and somehow Silas knows they are thinking the same thing. Tiered cake stands, they say simultaneously, then laugh. The hotel probably has several different heights, Dante continues. We arrange them at different levels, add some flowers from your ceremony arrangements. Create a landscape instead of a tower, Silas agrees. More organic, more personal. Sage is typing furiously. I can coordinate with the florist about complimentary arrangements, and Diego at the hotel will know about cake stands and display options. What about cost? June asks suddenly. I mean, I'm grateful, but we've already paid for... Don't worry about that now, Silas says firmly. Let's focus on making your day beautiful. We'll figure out the rest later. June looks between them, and something in her expression shifts. You two are... You're really good at this. The way you work together, how you both jumped in to help. She smiles, genuine and warm. Fletcher and I want our marriage to be like that. Partners who solve problems together instead of falling apart when things go wrong. Heat creeps up Silas's neck as he realizes what she's seeing. Two people who naturally complement each other, who instinctively divide crisis management between emotional support and practical solutions. We should get moving, Dante says, apparently feeling the same recognition. I need to call Maria back with final details, and we should coordinate with Diego about display setup. And I should probably check on Fletcher, Silas adds. Make sure he's not panicking about cake disasters. As they prepare to leave, June catches Silas's hand. Thank you, both of you, for not making me feel like this was the end of the world. It's not, Silas says simply. It's just a different beginning than you planned. In the elevator down to the lobby, Dante leans against the wall and looks at Silas with something that might be amazement. That was... he starts. Intense, Silas suggests. Surprisingly smooth? Weirdly natural? All of those. Dante's voice is soft. But also, you were incredible up there. The way you calmed June down, helped her see the bigger picture, and then we just figured it out. Together. You came up with a solution, Silas points out, and you have a neighbor who owns a bakery, which is either incredibly convenient or the universe conspiring to help us. Maria's amazing. She'll create something gorgeous. Dante pauses. But what you said about creating something new instead of trying to recreate what was lost? That was perfect. The elevator opens, but neither of them moves to get out. We work well together, Silas says quietly. We do. Dante meets his eyes. Really well. Think anyone else noticed? June definitely noticed, and Sage looked like she wanted to hire us as professional wedding crisis managers. They finally step out into the lobby, where Diego waves them over with an expression of professional concern mixed with curiosity. Mr. Moreau, Mr. Reeve, I understand there's been some excitement this morning? Nothing we can't handle, Dante says confidently, and Silas feels a little thrill at the casual we. Of course not, Diego agrees, smiling. I had a feeling you two would be excellent at handling whatever came up. Shall we discuss cake stand arrangements? As they follow Diego toward the restaurant to coordinate display logistics, Silas catches Dante's hand briefly. Ready for the rest of our crisis management debut? He asks. With you? I think I'm ready for anything. The squeeze of Dante's fingers suggests he means it, and Silas thinks that maybe this fake relationship is getting very real, very fast. And for the first time in years, that doesn't terrify him. It feels like exactly what he's been waiting for. An hour later, they're back in room 237 with coffee and pastries from Diego. The cake crisis successfully managed, and Maria's delivery confirmed for noon. Silas settles onto the window seat, feeling oddly accomplished despite the early hour. You know, Dante says, hanging his jacket carefully in the closet, I keep thinking about what June said, about wanting her marriage to be like what we just did. Problem-solving partners? Silas grins. Could be worse role models. Could be. Dante sits on the edge of the bed, studying Silas with that intense photographer's gaze. But it made me realize something. What? I've never worked with someone like that before, where we just knew what the other person was thinking, divided the responsibilities without discussing it. Silas feels his chest warm. You took the practical stuff, I handled the emotional support. Pretty natural division of labor. Too natural, Dante says quietly. Like we've been doing it for years instead of whatever this is. Before Silas can respond, there's a knock on their door. Not urgent this time, but insistent. Yo, Dante, you in there? Dante sighs. That's Knox. The best man who asks inappropriate questions? The same. Dante moves toward the door. Probably wants to interrogate you about death again. But when Dante opens the door, Knox pushes past him with his usual boundless energy, though there's something more thoughtful in his expression today. Dude, I heard about the cake thing, Knox says without preamble. Sage told everyone at breakfast how you two totally saved June's day. That's awesome. Silas blinks. Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's like... Knox settles into the room's armchair. I was talking to my therapist about grief stuff, right? And she says that healing happens when people show up for each other. Like really show up, not just go through the motions. Dante closes the door, looking surprised by Knox's more serious tone. That's exactly what you guys did this morning, Knox continues. June was falling apart, and you both just showed up. Fixed it. Made it better. He looks directly at Silas. That's what you do at funerals too, isn't it? You show up when people need someone to care. That's actually a really good way to put it, Silas says, touched by Knox's insight. My dad would have liked you, Knox says simply. Both of you. He always said the measure of good people is what they do when nobody's watching, and they don't have to help. The room goes quiet for a moment, and Silas feels that familiar tightness in his chest that comes with witnessing someone process grief in real time. Thank you, Silas says gently. That means a lot. Yeah, well. Knox's grin returns, but it's softer now. I should let you guys get ready for the ceremony. Just wanted to say thanks for being cool about my weird questions yesterday. And for, being the kind of people who fix cake disasters at 7 in the morning. After Knox leaves, Silas and Dante are alone with the weight of everything that's happened in the past few hours. So, Dante says, settling beside Silas on the window seat. We're apparently the couple who saves weddings now. Beats being the couple who ruins them, Silas points out. Though I have to admit, I like this version of us better than the version that was panicking about sharing a room yesterday. This version of us, Dante repeats slowly. When did we become an us? Silas considers this. Probably somewhere between you defending my work to Knox and us simultaneously saying, tiered cake stands, like we share a brain. That's terrifying. Good terrifying or bad terrifying? Definitely good terrifying. Dante's smile is soft, wondering. The kind where you want to see what happens next. What happens next is you photograph a wedding ceremony while I sit in the audience and try not to cry at the vows, Silas says. Think you can handle having a boyfriend who gets emotional at romantic moments? I think, Dante says, reaching for Silas's hand. I'm starting to look forward to it. Their fingers intertwine naturally, and Silas realizes that somewhere between fake dating and crisis management, they've become something real. Something worth figuring out. Ready for the rest of our weekend debut as the perfect couple? Silas asks. Ready, Dante agrees. But first, thank you. For this morning, for June, for making me feel like I'm actually good at something other than technical perfection. You are good at things other than technical perfection, Silas says firmly. You're good at caring about people. You're good at solving problems. You're good at making someone like me feel like they're worth showing up for. Dante's eyes go soft. Silas. And Silas continues with a grin. You're apparently very good at having neighbors who own bakeries at exactly the right moment. That was pretty convenient, Dante admits, laughing. Though I think Maria's going to want to meet the boyfriend who inspired an emergency cake order? Think she'll approve? I think she's going to love you, Dante says simply. Almost as much as I'm starting to. The words hang in the morning air between them, honest and terrifying, and absolutely true. Silas feels his heart skip, but instead of panic, there's only warmth and possibility. Good thing, he says softly, because I'm definitely starting to love you too. Outside their window, the estate grounds are coming alive with wedding preparation. But inside room 237, two men who started as strangers are becoming something neither of them expected. Something real. Something worth celebrating? Something that just might last beyond the weekend. Chapter 6. Behind the lens, Dante. The stone chapel fills with golden afternoon light as guests settle into the wooden pews, their soft murmurs creating a reverent backdrop. Dante adjusts his camera settings one final time, muscle memory guiding his hands while his mind catalogs angles and lighting conditions. Perfect exposure for the stained glass windows. Check. Backup battery secured. Check. Clear sight lines to the altar. Check. Everything under control, exactly how he prefers it. He glances toward the family section where Silas sits in the third row, looking oddly formal in his perpetual black suit among the sea of pastels and navy. For once, his professional mourning attire fits the solemnity of the occasion, though Dante notices he's paired it with a deep purple tie that catches the light from the windows. Always finds a way to add color, Dante murmurs to himself, surprised by the fondness in his voice. The processional music begins and Dante lifts his camera, falling into the familiar rhythm of capturing moments. River Mackenzie glides down the aisle in sage green, followed by the other bridesmaids in perfectly choreographed steps. He frames each shot with technical precision, rule of thirds, balanced composition, optimal depth of field. But when the doors open for June's entrance on her father's arm, something shifts in his peripheral vision. Silas's face transforms with pure, unguarded emotion as the bride appears in her flowing gown, late afternoon sunlight creating an ethereal halo through her veil. Dante's finger hovers over the shutter release, torn between his assigned subject and the unexpected beauty of Silas's reaction. The man isn't performing professional grief or maintaining social facades. He's simply moved by witnessing love in its most celebrated form. Focus, Moreau. You're here to work. He captures June's procession, her father's proud smile, Fletcher's awestruck expression at the altar. All technically perfect shots that will look beautiful in the wedding album. But his gaze keeps drifting to Silas, who watches the ceremony with the kind of authentic emotional engagement Dante has spent years trying to capture in his subjects. Reverend Blackwood begins the service with words about love's endurance through joy and sorrow. And Dante notices Silas tilt his head thoughtfully, as if storing away wisdom about grief's place in celebration. When she asks the congregation to witness June and Fletcher's commitment, Silas's "we will" rings out with genuine conviction. The personal vows begin, and Dante positions himself for the optimal angle to capture the couple's faces. But through his viewfinder, he also catches Silas dabbing at his eyes with his purple pocket square, as June promises to love Fletcher through every season of our lives, even when winter comes. The man cries at weddings now, too, Dante thinks. But there's no judgment in it. Only growing fascination with someone who feels everything so fully. Fletcher's vows mention building a life that honors both adventure and stability, finding joy in ordinary moments, and Dante watches Silas smile with the kind of recognition that comes from understanding life's fragility. The professional mourner knows better than anyone how precious ordinary moments become. Without conscious thought, Dante adjusts his position and captures Silas mid-smile, tears caught in his lashes like diamonds, face radiant with genuine joy for strangers' happiness. Not a stock photo this time, something real, something that matters more than it impresses. The shot is perfect, not because of technical skill, but because it contains something he's been chasing for years without knowing it: raw, authentic human emotion. The rings are exchanged with trembling hands and nervous laughter. June nearly drops Fletcher's band, and the congregation chuckles warmly while she steadies herself. Dante dutifully photographs the moment, but finds himself more interested in how Silas laughs along, fully present in their story. "You may kiss your bride," Reverend Blackwood announces, and as Fletcher sweeps June into a passionate kiss, the chapel erupts in cheers and applause. Dante captures it all: the kiss, the celebration, the flower petals tossed by overjoyed guests. But the image that will stay with him is Silas clapping with such genuine delight that several nearby guests smile just watching him react. How does he do that? Dante wonders. Make everyone around him feel more alive? The recessional begins with June and Fletcher practically floating down the aisle, followed by the wedding party in joyous procession. Guests file out in animated conversation, already sharing favorite moments from the ceremony. Dante efficiently packs his primary camera and switches to his backup for candid reception shots, methodically checking his equipment while the chapel empties around him. He's reviewing his shots on the camera's display when footsteps echo on the stone floor. "That was beautiful," Silas says softly, appearing beside him. "You barely stopped moving the whole time. Do you ever just experience moments as they happen?" Dante looks up from his camera, struck by the question. "I'm working. Experiencing them is for the guests." "But you're human too," Silas points out, settling onto the pew beside him. "Don't you ever want to just feel what's happening instead of documenting it?" "Feelings don't pay the bills," Dante replies automatically, then winces at how cold that sounds. "I mean, I know what you mean." Silas's voice holds no judgment. "But you created something beautiful today. I watched you work. You weren't just taking pictures, you were creating art." Dante frowns, scrolling through his shots. They are technically excellent, perfectly composed and exposed, but looking at them now, with Silas's warmth radiating beside him, they feel somehow incomplete. "They're fine," he says dismissively. "May I?" Silas gestures toward the camera. Dante hesitates, then hands it over. Silas scrolls through the images with careful attention, occasionally making soft sounds of appreciation. This one. Silas stops at a shot of June's father lifting her veil, his weathered hands gentle against the delicate fabric. "The way you caught the light on his wedding ring, you can see 40 years of marriage in that gesture." Dante looks at the image with fresh eyes. He'd focused on the technical challenge of backlighting, but Silas sees the story within the technique. "And this," Silas continues, landing on Fletcher's face during June's vows. "He's not just listening to words, he's memorizing them. You captured that exact moment when he realizes he gets to keep her." "You see a lot in pictures," Dante observes, oddly moved by Silas's interpretations. "I see a lot in people," Silas corrects gently. "Pictures just hold the moments still long enough to really look." They sit in comfortable silence as Silas continues through the gallery, offering observations that transform Dante's technical captures into human stories. When he reaches the candid shots Dante took during the personal vows, he pauses. "Oh," Silas's voice catches. "You photographed the guests too." Dante leans closer to see what caught Silas's attention. It's the image he took without thinking. Silas himself, tears sparkling in the chapel light, face luminous with joy for June and Fletcher's happiness. "I didn't realize you were—" Silas trails off, staring at his own image. "You were beautiful," Dante says simply, the words escaping before he can stop them. "I mean, the shot. The composition is beautiful." But Silas turns to look at him directly, and Dante's breath catches at the intensity in those warm brown eyes. "Thank you," Silas says quietly. for seeing me that way. The moment stretches between them, heavy with possibility, until footsteps echo from the chapel entrance. Sage appears, tablet clutched against her chest, and looking considerably more frazzled than her usual professional composure allows. "Oh, good, there you are," she says, relief evident in her voice. "I've been looking everywhere. We have a small situation with the reception timeline." Dante and Silas exchange a glance, their intimate bubble gently broken but not shattered. "What kind of situation?" Silas asks, already shifting into his crisis management mode. "Nothing catastrophic," Sage assures them quickly, but the florist delivered the wrong centerpieces for half the tables, and the backup arrangements won't arrive until after cocktail hour starts. Cordelia is... She pauses, searching for diplomatic phrasing. Managing the crisis with her usual dramatic flair. Translation, she's losing her mind? Dante asks. "I prefer providing passionate feedback to the vendor," Sage says diplomatically. "But after how beautifully you two handled the cake crisis this morning, I was hoping you might be willing to help with this too. Your collaborative problem solving was exactly what we needed." Dante and Silas exchange a glance, and Silas can see the exact moment when Dante's problem solving instincts kick in. "What kind of situation?" Silas asks, already shifting into crisis management mode. "Well, we have enough correct centerpieces for about half the tables, and the backup flowers will arrive in time for dinner. But we need to figure out how to make the mismatched arrangements look intentional rather than like a mistake." "Show us what we're working with," Dante says, his artistic eye already engaged. Sage's relief is visible. "Cordelia specifically asked for the supportive couple who saves the day. I think you two are becoming legendary around here." Dante realizes they're being drawn deeper into their performance, but looking at Silas's eager expression, he finds he doesn't mind. There's something appealing about being seen as the couple who solves problems together. "What do you need us to do?" Silas asks. "Well, we have enough correct centerpieces for about half the tables, and the backup flowers will arrive in time for dinner. But we need to figure out how to make the mismatched arrangements look intentional rather than like a mistake." Dante's artistic instincts kick in automatically. "Show me what we're working with." As they walk toward the reception venue, Sage explaining the logistics while Silas asks thoughtful questions about guest flow and timing, Dante realizes something has shifted in how he approaches problems. Instead of focusing solely on the technical aspects, how to photograph around the imperfections, he's thinking about the human element, how to make the guests feel welcomed and celebrated despite the behind-the-scenes chaos. "You know," Silas says as they approach the ballroom, "some of the most beautiful weddings I've attended, witnessed in my professional capacity, were the ones where small imperfections made everything feel more authentic, less staged." "Exactly," Dante agrees, his mind already working on solutions. "Mixed centerpieces could actually look intentional if we create a pattern. Alternating tables, grouped by color families?" Sage looks between them with growing relief. "You two really do work well as a team." As they enter the ballroom to assess the floral situation, Dante catches Silas's hand briefly, squeezing it once. Not for their audience, but because he wants to. Because somewhere between the chapel and this moment, working together has stopped feeling like performance and started feeling like partnership. And for the first time in his career, Dante finds himself looking forward to solving problems with someone else instead of retreating behind his camera to document other people's solutions. The mismatched centerpieces spread across the room don't look like a crisis to him anymore. They look like an opportunity to create something beautiful together. Chapter 7. Lost in the Maze. Silas. The late afternoon sun filters through the rose garden in golden streams, and Silas can't stop stealing glances at Dante as they follow the other couples toward the entrance of the maze. Something shifted during the ceremony, not just in how they worked together on the centerpiece crisis, but in the way Dante looked at him afterward, like he was seeing something new. "Couples treasure hunt," Cordelia announces, dramatically flourishing a stack of cream-colored cards. "Each duo will receive clues leading to romantic spots throughout the maze. The goal isn't to win, it's to discover something beautiful together. Silas catches River rolling her eyes at her boyfriend. How very Cordelia, she mutters. First clue, Cordelia continues, pressing a card into Dante's hand with unnecessary ceremony, leads you to where love blooms eternal in the heart of stone. How poetic? Dante studies the card with the same intensity he brings to camera settings. Stone heart probably means the statue in the center. Or it could be metaphorical, Silas suggests, enjoying the way Dante's analytical mind works. Like finding love in an emotionally closed-off person? Dante's head snaps up, and for a moment their eyes meet with an intensity that has nothing to do with treasure hunts. Then Dante clears his throat and turns toward the maze entrance. Right. Well, statues are more literal. The maze entrance swallows them in green shadows, the hedgerows towering overhead like living walls. The sounds of other couples fade quickly, laughter from one direction, Knox's voice booming from another. Within minutes, they're alone except for the distant murmur of a fountain. Left or right? Dante asks at the first junction. Left feels right, Silas says, then grins, which makes no logical sense, but trust me. They walk side by side down the narrow path, close enough that their shoulders brush occasionally. The roses are in full bloom, their scent heavy and intoxicating in the warm air. Everything feels heightened somehow. The texture of the gravel under their feet, the play of light and shadow on Dante's face, the awareness of being completely alone together for the first time since last night. Thank you, Silas says suddenly, for what you said this morning about my work being necessary. Dante's step falters slightly. I meant it. I know you did. That's what made it matter. Silas traces his fingers along the hedge as they walk. Most people either think what I do is weird or they want to treat it like entertainment. You actually listened. Your work is important, Dante says firmly. You help people process the hardest thing humans have to face. Anyone who can't see that is an idiot. Something warm unfurls in Silas's chest. You really believe that? I watched you this morning with the centerpiece crisis. You didn't just problem solve. You made everyone feel calmer just by being there. That's a real skill. They stare at each other in the dappled sunlight, and Silas feels that dangerous flutter again. The one that makes him forget this is all pretend. Another junction approaches, this one with 3 possible paths. Dante consults the clue card again. Where love blooms eternal in the heart of stone, he reads aloud. That way, Silas points to the center path. I can hear water. Fountains usually have stone elements. They're deeper in the maze now, the hedges blocking out most of the outside world. The path curves and splits again and again until Silas realizes he's completely lost track of their route. Do you know where we are? He asks. Dante looks around, his photographer's eye taking in their surroundings. Not exactly. So we're lost. We're exploring, Dante corrects, but there's amusement in his voice. They try the right path, then the left when it dead ends. The maze is more complex than it appeared from the outside, a true labyrinth designed to confuse and delay. After 20 minutes of wandering, they find themselves in a small circular clearing with a stone bench beneath an arbor heavy with climbing roses. Well, Silas says, settling onto the bench, this is definitely romantic, even if it's not where we're supposed to be. Dante remains standing, but he's looking at Silas with that same intense expression from earlier. Can I ask you something? Shoot! Why did you really become a professional mourner? The question catches Silas off guard. They established the no personal questions rule, but somehow it doesn't seem to matter anymore. You want the real story? If you're willing to share it. Silas pats the bench beside him, and after a moment's hesitation, Dante sits. Not close enough to touch, but close enough that Silas can see the silver threads in his dark hair, the way his hands rest carefully on his knees. My grandmother raised me, Silas begins. My parents died when I was 8, and she took me in without question. She was everything. Warm, funny, endlessly patient with a grieving kid who didn't understand why the world suddenly felt so scary. Dante's expression softens. She sounds wonderful. She was, but she outlived most of her friends, and when she died 3 years ago, her funeral was. Silas swallows hard. Pathetic. Maybe 15 people. The service felt hollow, rushed. She deserved so much more. I'm sorry, I sat there thinking about how she always said everyone deserves to be properly mourned. That grief shared is grief halved. And I realized she was right, but sometimes there's no one left to do the mourning. Silas picks at a loose thread on his jacket. So I started offering that service. Professional mourning sounds bizarre, but really it's just being present for the grief that needs witnessing. That's not bizarre, Dante says quietly. That's beautiful. Something in his tone makes Silas look up. Dante is watching him with an expression so tender, it makes Silas's breath catch. What about you, Silas asks. Why did you stop doing fine art photography? Dante is quiet for so long that Silas thinks he won't answer. Then, because my father was right. My work was technically perfect and emotionally empty. That doesn't sound right. I saw your photos today. Today was different. Dante's hands clench slightly. Today I was watching you experience joy, and somehow I captured that instead of just documenting an event. The admission hangs between them, loaded with meaning. Silas feels his pulse quicken. My father is a renowned art critic, Dante continues. Growing up, nothing I created was ever good enough. Too sentimental, too obvious, too emotional. So I learned to strip all feeling out of my work, made it clean, precise, technically flawless. He laughs, but there's no humor in it. Turns out soulless art doesn't sell well in galleries. So you switch to weddings, where technical perfection pays the bills, even if it doesn't feed the soul. Dante turns to look at him fully. But watching you today, seeing how you experience emotion so fully, I remembered why I wanted to be an artist in the first place. They're sitting closer now, though Silas doesn't remember either of them moving. The scent of roses surrounds them, and the late afternoon light catches in Dante's gray eyes, turning them almost silver. Silas, Dante says, his voice rough around the edges. Yeah? I need you to know that this morning when I defended your work, that wasn't part of our arrangement. I wasn't acting. Silas's heart starts beating faster. No? I was genuinely angry that people were treating you like entertainment. You deserve better than that. Dante, and when I said you were beautiful in that photograph, I meant it. Not the composition or the lighting. You. The way you look when you're feeling something real. They're so close now that Silas can see the faint lines around Dante's eyes, can feel the warmth radiating from his body. The space between them feels electric, charged with possibility. I think, Silas says carefully, our fake relationship might be getting a little too real. Dante goes very still. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not sure I'm pretending anymore. The words tumble out before Silas can stop them. This morning when you defended me, tonight when you said I was beautiful in that photograph, that felt real. And I don't know what to do with that. Dante stares at him for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. Silas, I know it's complicated. I know we have rules and this is supposed to be fake and we barely know each other outside of this weekend. Silas, but I can't stop thinking about what you said about capturing authentic emotion and how you look at me sometimes like. Dante's hand comes up to cradle Silas's jaw, thumb brushing across his cheek. The gesture is so gentle, so unexpected, that Silas's words die in his throat. Can I? Dante asks quietly. Silas nods, not trusting his voice. The kiss is nothing like Silas expected. It's soft, tentative, questioning rather than claiming. Dante's lips are warm and slightly chapped, and he tastes like the coffee they shared this morning. When Silas responds leaning closer, Dante's other hand finds his shoulder, steadying them both. It's over too quickly and not quickly enough. When they separate, Dante's forehead drops against his, both of them breathing unsteadily. Well, Silas manages after a moment. That definitely wasn't in our contract. Dante huffs a quiet laugh. Number, it wasn't. So what now? I don't know, Dante admits. This isn't something I planned for. Good thing I'm excellent at improvising. This time Dante's smile is real, unreserved. Yeah, good thing. Silas, Dante? River's voice echoes from somewhere in the maze, getting closer. Cordelia wants all couples back for group photos. The spell breaks gently, leaving them smiling at each other like conspirators. As they stand and begin retracing their steps, Dante catches Silas's hand. Is this okay? He asks. Silas squeezes his fingers. More than okay. Good, Dante says, because I think we're about to have our first real test as a couple. What do you mean? I mean River's about to see us holding hands, and this time it won't be for show. Silas looks down at their intertwined fingers, then back at Dante's face. Guess we'll find out if we're any good at being real. Terrifying thought. The best ones usually are. They follow the sound of voices back toward the maze entrance, hands linked, hearts full of new possibilities, and the terrifying knowledge that their fake relationship has just become something infinitely more complicated and infinitely more real. Chapter 8. Reception Revelations. Dante. The grand ballroom pulses with celebration, live jazz quartet, crystal chandeliers casting rainbow prisms across dancing couples, and the warm golden light that photographers dream about. Dante should be in his element, capturing perfect moments with technical precision. Instead, he can't stop stealing glances at Silas beside him, remembering the soft surprise of their first kiss 20 minutes ago. You're staring, Silas murmurs, close enough that his breath tickles Dante's ear. They're standing near the sweetheart table, supposedly taking candid shots of June and Fletcher's joy, but Dante's camera hangs forgotten around his neck. I'm observing, Dante corrects, though his cheeks warm. Professional habit. Silas's smile is soft, private. And what are you observing? That you're beautiful when you laugh, that I want to kiss you again, that I have no idea what I'm doing. That we should probably... Dante starts, but Cordelia's voice booms across the ballroom. Attention, lovely couples! Time for our anniversary dance tradition. Dante's stomach drops. He'd forgotten about this particular nightmare. Oh no, he whispers. Cordelia continues with theatrical flourish. All our married couples, please join June and Fletcher on the dance floor. Then our engaged couples, dating couples, and anyone brave enough to declare their love publicly. It's okay, Silas says quietly, but Dante catches the slight tension in his posture. We can handle one dance. Except they can't. Not anymore. Not when Dante knows exactly how Silas feels in his arms, how he tastes like coffee and possibility. This won't be performance, it'll be exposure. The married couples sway to the opening strains of The Way You Look Tonight, and Dante watches them with his photographer's eye, cataloging the small intimacies. Hands resting naturally on shoulders, unconscious swaying in sync, whispered private jokes. Things he's captured 1,000 times but never experienced. Next up, our engaged couples, Cordelia calls. Fletcher spins June gracefully, her dress flaring like a flower. They move together like they've been dancing for decades, not months. Dante finds himself shooting instinctively, capturing their genuine connection, the way Fletcher's hand spans protectively across June's lower back. Beautiful, Silas observes, following his gaze. You're getting that look again. What look? Like you're seeing something everyone else misses, your artistic breakthrough face. Dante lowers his camera, struck by how well Silas already knows him. I think that's because of you. The breakthrough, I mean. Dating couples, you're up, Cordelia announces with a meaningful look in their direction. Silas extends his hand formally. Mr. Moreau, may I have this dance? The simple gesture shouldn't make Dante's heart race, but everything feels different now, weighted with uncertainty. When he takes Silas's hand, their fingers interlock perfectly, and Silas leads him onto the parquet floor with surprising grace. Didn't expect a professional mourner to be a good dancer, Dante admits, settling his left hand on Silas's shoulder, while his right remains captured in warm fingers. Grief counseling includes a lot of community events. Church socials, memorial celebrations, family gatherings. You pick up skills. Silas's eyes sparkle with mischief. Plus, I took ballroom lessons for a client's anniversary memorial. Figured if I was going to honor their love story, I should do it properly. Of course he did. Dante finds himself pulling Silas incrementally closer as they sway to the music. That's actually very sweet. Don't sound so surprised. I'm a delight. You are, Dante says, and means it completely. The admission hangs between them, sincere and vulnerable. Silas's step falters slightly, and Dante feels something shift between them. Suddenly, they're not performing for anyone. They're just two men holding each other while jazz piano weaves around them, golden light pooling at their feet. Dante, Silas whispers. I know. They're close enough now that Dante can see the flecks of amber in Silas's brown eyes, can feel the warmth radiating from his body. Other couples move around them, but the world has narrowed to this. Silas's hand on his shoulder, their joined fingers, the way Silas is looking at him, like he's something worth figuring out. You're beautiful, Dante finds himself saying, the words spilling out unbidden. Not just in photographs. Right now. Here. Silas's eyes widen, then soften with something that looks dangerously like tenderness. Careful, or I might start thinking you actually like me. I do like you. The confession escapes before Dante can stop it. Too much. This was supposed to be simple. Nothing about you is simple, Silas replies, thumb stroking across Dante's knuckles. Your art, your brain, the way you defend people you care about, the way you make me feel like I'm worth defending. The song shifts to a minor key, something haunting and beautiful, and Dante realizes they've stopped moving entirely. They're just standing in the middle of the dance floor, holding each other, having a conversation that feels too important for public consumption. We should probably, Dante starts. Keep dancing, Silas agrees, but neither of them moves. A camera flash goes off nearby, and Dante reflexively turns to see one of the other wedding guests taking photos. Knox waves from across the room, grinning like he's witnessed something fascinating. The reminder of their audience hits like cold water. Right, Dante says, stepping back slightly and resuming their dance. Performance. But Silas doesn't let him retreat completely. His hand tightens on Dante's shoulder, keeping them close. Not performance. Not anymore. Then what is this? I don't know, Silas admits, and his honesty is devastating. But I want to find out. After tonight, after this weekend, I want to know what we could be. The song ends, and applause ripples through the ballroom. Dante realizes they're both breathing hard, like they've run a marathon instead of swayed to jazz music. Other couples begin leaving the floor, but they remain frozen in place. Beautiful. Cordelia appears beside them, eyes bright with satisfaction. You two were absolutely magical, so romantic, so connected. I could practically see the love radiating off you. Thank you, Silas manages, his voice slightly rough. Now, who's ready for the bouquet toss? Cordelia continues. June specifically requested that all the couples participate. Something about spreading the love energy? Dante wants to object. They need space to process what just happened. But June appears with her bouquet glowing with happiness. Please? She asks. You two have been such wonderful examples of partnership this weekend. It would mean so much. How can they refuse the bride? They follow the crowd to the designated area. Dante acutely aware of Silas beside him, the lingering warmth where their hands touched, the weight of unspoken words between them. June positions herself at the front of the crowd, bouquet raised. On 3. 1, 2. The flowers sail through the air in a perfect arc. Dante watches its trajectory with photographer's instincts, already composing the shot in his mind, when suddenly Silas moves beside him. not reaching for the bouquet, stepping protectively closer as someone else lunges forward, ensuring Dante doesn't get knocked over in the chaos. River catches the bouquet with athletic grace, but Dante barely notices. He's too focused on Silas's immediate protective instinct, the way he automatically moved to shield Dante from the crowd's enthusiasm. "You okay?" Silas asks, hand briefly touching Dante's lower back. "Yeah, thank you." Such a small gesture, but it confirms what Dante's been trying to ignore. This isn't performance anymore. This is care, genuine and instinctive and terrifying in its implications. Cordelia claps for attention again. Now for our toast to young love, I'd like to invite our newest couple, Silas and Dante, to share some words about the beauty of finding your person. Dante's blood freezes. Public speaking is bad enough, but public speaking about feelings, about love, about things he's only just beginning to understand. Actually, Silas says smoothly, Dante had something he wanted to say about photography and capturing real emotion. He gives Dante an encouraging smile. Go ahead. No endearment this time, but Silas's eyes hold a question. Trust me? Dante finds himself stepping forward, accepting the microphone from a beaming Cordelia. The ballroom falls quiet, expectant faces turned his way. His hands shake slightly as he raises the mic. I dot. He clears his throat, finds Silas in the crowd. Those warm brown eyes steady him, encouraging. I've been a wedding photographer for 8 years. I've captured thousands of moments of joy, of love, of celebration. But I realized something this weekend. His voice gains strength as he continues, the words finding their own path. The most beautiful photographs aren't about perfect lighting or composition. They're about authentic emotion. About people who feel things fully, who aren't afraid to be vulnerable. His eyes lock with Silas's. Someone taught me that this weekend. That feeling things deeply isn't weakness. It's what makes art real. The crowd murmurs appreciatively, but Dante barely hears them. He's watching Silas's face, the surprise giving way to something deeper. So here's to June and Fletcher, Dante continues, raising an imaginary glass. And to everyone brave enough to let themselves feel what they're actually feeling, even when it's scary. Applause erupts around them, but Dante only sees Silas moving through the crowd toward him, eyes bright with something that might be pride. That was... Silas reaches him, takes the microphone. That was honest and beautiful. He turns to address the room. What Dante didn't mention is that he taught me something too. He taught me that joy deserves as much attention as grief. That celebration is just as important as mourning. That some connections are worth exploring. Now it's Dante's turn to be surprised by the careful way Silas chooses his words, speaking directly to him despite their audience. To connections worth exploring, Silas says, raising his own imaginary glass. And figuring things out as you go. The crowd cheers, glasses actually raised this time, and June and Fletcher look positively radiant with happiness. But Dante can't focus on any of it. He's too busy staring at Silas, at the way the lights catch in his dark hair, at the smile that seems both public and private. We should probably, Dante starts. Dance again? Silas suggests hopefully. The band launches into something slow and romantic, and Dante finds himself nodding before his brain can object. They return to the dance floor, but this time feels different. Less performance, more exploration. They move together naturally now, conversation flowing in quiet murmurs. Thank you, Dante says. For the speech thing, I don't usually... I know, you were perfect. It felt true, what I said about you teaching me. What I said was true too, about connections worth exploring. They're quiet for a moment, processing the weight of their public declarations. Around them, other couples sway in their own romantic bubbles, but Dante feels like he and Silas exist in a space apart from everyone else. So what happens now? Dante asks eventually. Now we finish this dance, we get through tonight. And tomorrow. Silas hesitates. Tomorrow we figure out what we want this to be. Without the wedding, without the performance pressure, just us. That's terrifying, like most good things are. The song draws to a close, but neither of them moves to separate. They stand there, holding each other in the middle of the dance floor, surrounded by celebration, but focused entirely on each other. Dante, Silas whispers. Yeah? I'm really glad you crashed that funeral. Despite everything, the confusion, the terror, the overwhelming newness, Dante finds himself laughing. I'm really glad you crashed this wedding. Best mistake I ever made. Me too. The music shifts to something livelier, and other couples begin more energetic dancing around them. The spell breaks, but gently, leaving them smiling at each other like conspirators. Want to get some air? Silas suggests. The terrace is probably empty. Dante nods, suddenly desperate for space to process everything that just happened. They slip out through the French doors onto the stone terrace overlooking the gardens, the cool evening air a relief after the warmth of the ballroom. So, Silas says, leaning against the balustrade, that just happened. Which part? The dancing, the speeches, or the part where we basically told a room full of strangers we want to figure each other out? All of it, but especially the last part. Dante joins him at the railing, their shoulders almost touching. The gardens stretch out below them, moonlight casting everything in silver and shadow. It's beautiful, romantic, and absolutely perfect for the conversation they need to have. Silas, he starts. I know, it's complicated. We barely know each other. We're from different worlds. This whole thing started as a disaster. That's not what I was going to say. Silas turns to look at him, eyebrows raised. No? Number, I was going to say that I don't want this to end tomorrow. Whatever this is, whatever we're doing, I want to keep figuring it out. With you? The confession hangs in the night air between them, honest and terrifying and absolutely true. Silas stares at him for a long moment, and Dante's heart hammers against his ribs while he waits for a response. Dante Moreau, Silas says finally, a slow smile spreading across his face. Are you asking me out? For real this time? Yeah, I think I am. Then yes, absolutely yes. The relief that floods through Dante is so intense, he actually sways slightly. Silas notices, stepping closer with concern. You okay? Terrified, Dante admits. But good terrified. Good terrified or bad terrified? The kind where you do it anyway. Silas laughs, the sound bright and happy in the quiet night. I like that kind. They stand there grinning at each other, and Dante realizes he's never been happier to be completely out of his depth. The French doors open behind them, and the sounds of continued celebration spill out. Laughter, music, the clink of glasses. We should probably go back, Dante says reluctantly. Probably. Can't abandon our duties as the inspirational couple. Is that what we are? I don't know what we are yet, Silas says honestly, but I want to find out. They head back toward the ballroom, but Silas catches Dante's hand as they reach the doors. Hey, he says softly. Yeah? Thank you. For the speech, for the dancing, for taking a chance on this mess. Thank you for being worth the chance. They slip back into the celebration, hands linked, ready to face whatever the rest of the evening might bring. Chapter 9. Late Night Confessions. Silas. The champagne bubbles have long since gone flat in Silas's system by the time he and Dante finally make it back to room 237. His tie hangs loose around his neck, and his feet ache from an evening spent dancing. Actual dancing. Not the awkward shuffle he'd expected when this weekend began. Dante's camera bag weighs heavy on his shoulder, filled with what Silas suspects are some of the most emotionally honest photographs the man has ever taken. I should probably warn you, Dante says, sliding the key card with hands that aren't quite steady. I'm having what my therapist would call a lot of feelings right now. Silas grins, nudging Dante's shoulder with his own. Good thing you're dating a professional griever. I'm excellent at handling feelings. Dating. The word hangs between them as they step into the room. That's what we're doing now, isn't it? The phrase follows them into the room, where the turned-down bed and scattered rose petals suddenly seem less like hotel ambiance and more like a question mark. Silas isn't sure which terrifies him more, the possibility that they're really doing this, or the possibility that they're not. I should get out of this suit, Dante says, already shrugging out of his jacket. These formal events always make me feel like I'm wearing a costume. Silas settles into the window seat, pulling off his dress shoes with a grateful sigh. Funny, I spend most of my professional life in formal black, and tonight was the first time it felt like me instead of my job. Dante pauses halfway through loosening his tie, catching Silas's eye in the mirror. Because you were celebrating instead of mourning? Because I was with you. The admission hangs in the air, honest and raw. Dante's hands stutter on his collar, and for a moment Silas worries he's said too much too fast. But then Dante turns around, tie finally free, hair mussed from the evening's events. Silas. His voice carries something fragile. I need you to know something. Okay. Silas draws his knees up, making himself smaller in the window seat, creating space for whatever Dante needs to say. When I was 12, my mother left. Dante sits heavily on the edge of the bed, hands clasped between his knees. She said living with my father was like living with a beautiful statue, technically perfect but completely cold. Said she felt lonelier married to him than she did when she was alone. Silas's chest tightens. He wants to reach out, to offer comfort, but something in Dante's posture warns him to wait. And the thing is, Dante continues, staring at his hands, I spent the next 19 years becoming exactly like him. Technically perfect, emotionally unavailable. I turned myself into the kind of person who drives others away, and then I convinced myself it was safer that way. Dante? But tonight, when you talked about connections worth exploring, when you protected me from that bouquet toss chaos, when you looked at me like I was worth figuring out? Dante's voice cracks slightly. I realized I don't want to be safe anymore. I want to try this. With you. The words hit Silas like a physical force. He's spent 3 years comforting people through their worst moments, learning to absorb grief and fear and loss without drowning in it. But this, Dante's raw honesty, the vulnerability in his steel gray eyes, this threatens to undo him completely. I want to try too, Silas whispers. More than I probably should after 3 days. Dante's exhale sounds like relief and terror rolled into one. I'm scared out of my mind because I have no idea how to do this. How to be someone's whatever we are. When I've spent most of my adult life convinced I was fundamentally unlovable. Silas unfolds himself from the window seat, crossing to sit beside Dante on the bed. Close enough to touch, but not quite touching. Not until he's sure it's welcome. Can I tell you something? He asks. Dante nods. I've never been to a wedding as a guest before this weekend. Only funerals, only endings. And I chose that, you know. I built my entire life around other people's grief because it felt safer than risking my own joy. Silas picks at the hotel's plush comforter. My sister B says I use other people's sadness to avoid dealing with my own loneliness. Your sister sounds wise. She's also completely right. Silas manages a rueful smile. I convinced myself that I was helping people, which I am, but I was also hiding, using their grief as an excuse to avoid building anything real for myself. Dante shifts closer, their knees almost touching. What changed? You. The answer comes without hesitation. You and your terrible emotional walls and your beautiful photographs and the way you defended my work like it was the most important thing in the world. You made me want to stop hiding. This time when Dante reaches for him, Silas doesn't hesitate. Their fingers tangle together, warm and slightly trembling. I have no idea what I'm doing either, Silas continues. I mean, I know how to help other people process their feelings, but my own? I'm a disaster. Ask anyone who's ever tried to date me. How many people have tried? Silas considers this. Honestly, not many. Turns out I cry at strangers' funerals for money isn't the most compelling dating profile. Dante laughs, actually laughs. and the sound fills something hollow in Silas's chest that he hadn't realized was empty. Well, Dante says, thumb tracing circles over Silas's knuckles, I take photographs of people's happiest moments while feeling absolutely nothing. So we're both emotionally complicated. Maybe we can be emotionally complicated together. Is that what we're doing? Dante's voice carries hope and uncertainty in equal measure. Being together? For real this time? Silas studies their joined hands, the way Dante's long fingers dwarf his own, the careful way Dante holds him like something precious. Outside their window, the estate grounds are quiet except for the distant sound of the cleanup crew breaking down the reception. Tomorrow they'll all return to their separate lives. Dante to his minimalist apartment and his photography studio. Silas to his cramped studio and his houseplants named after emotions. But tonight, in this room with its rose petals and turned-down bed, they can be anything they want to be. I'd like to try, Silas says finally. The being together thing, even if we're both disasters. Especially because we're both disasters. Dante lifts their joined hands, pressing a soft kiss to Silas's knuckles. Disasters need each other. Very romantic. I'm learning. They sit in comfortable silence for a while, processing the magnitude of what they've just committed to. Silas finds himself studying Dante's profile in the lamplight. The sharp cut of his jawline, the way his hair falls across his forehead, the small scar near his left eyebrow that Silas has never noticed before. What are you thinking about? Dante asks softly. Logistics, Silas admits. You live across town from me. You photograph weddings, I work funerals. Your world is all about preserving perfect moments. Mine's about helping people let go. How do we make this work in real life? Dante is quiet for so long that Silas starts to worry he's scared him off. But then Dante squeezes his hand. I've been thinking about that too, he says. And I think maybe our differences are exactly what we need. You help people process endings, I capture beginnings. You feel everything deeply, I see everything clearly. Maybe together we can help each other find the balance. You make it sound so simple. It probably won't be simple. Dante turns to face him fully. I'm going to need time to learn how to be vulnerable without running away. And you're probably going to have to be patient with me when I revert to my old habits of hiding behind my camera. I can be patient. Silas shifts closer until their foreheads are almost touching. And you'll have to be patient with me when I try to take care of everyone else's emotional needs instead of dealing with my own. I can do that. So we're really doing this? Dating for real? Not just for a weekend? I want to. Dante's voice is soft but certain. I want to take you on actual dates. I want to meet your sister and your plants with the ridiculous names. I want to bring you coffee in the morning and argue with you about whether technical perfection matters more than emotional authenticity. It doesn't, by the way. Emotional authenticity wins every time. We'll see about that. Silas grins, feeling lighter than he has in months. Are you challenging me to an emotion versus technique debate? Maybe. Are you going to cry about it? Only if you're very lucky. Dante's answering smile is soft and genuine, the kind of expression Silas suspects he rarely shows anyone. It makes Silas want to photograph him, to capture this moment of open joy and keep it forever. Can I ask you something? Dante says. Anything. When this weekend is over, when we go back to our regular lives, what's the first thing you want to do? Together, I mean. Silas considers this, running his thumb over Dante's knuckles. I want you to come to one of my jobs with me. Not to work, just to understand what I do. To see how grief can be beautiful when it's shared properly. That's... Dante pauses, something shifting in his expression. That's actually perfect. I'd like that. And I want to take you to my studio, show you my real work. The photographs I take for myself, not for clients. The ones that don't have enough emotion in them? The ones that are about to have a lot more emotion in them, thanks to you. They're leaning closer now, the space between them charged with possibility. Silas can smell Dante's cologne, faded after the long day, mixed with something that's purely him. When Dante's phone buzzes against the nightstand, they both freeze. Ignore it, Silas whispers. I should probably... The phone buzzes again, insistent. Dante sighs, reaching for it with his free hand while maintaining his grip on Silas. It's my father, he says, frowning at the screen. At midnight on a Saturday? That's actually not like him at all. Answer it, Silas says, though every instinct tells him this interruption won't be good news. It might be important. Dante hesitates, then swipes to accept the call. Dad, is everything... Silas can't hear Octavio Moreau's words, but he can see their effect on Dante's face. The soft openness, shutters closed, replaced by familiar tension. Dante's grip on Silas's hand tightens. When? Dante asks, his voice carefully controlled. And they want an answer by Monday? Dad, I'm at a wedding. I can't just... A pause. No, I understand how important this is. Yes, I'll think about it. He ends the call and stares at the phone like it's personally offended him. What is it? Silas asks gently. There's a gallery in Seattle. They want to offer me a solo show, but I'd need to move there for 6 months to prepare. It's everything I thought I wanted when I was doing fine art photography. Silas feels something cold settle in his stomach. When would you need to leave? If I said yes, 2 weeks? The silence stretches between them, heavy with implications. 6 months, Seattle, 2 weeks' notice. Silas does the math and doesn't like the answer. That's amazing, he says, and means it, even as his heart starts to crack. A solo show is huge, right? That's what you've been working toward? It was, Dante says quietly. Before this weekend. Before you. Now I don't know what I want. Dante. Silas doesn't untangle their hands, but his grip loosens. You can't turn down your dream opportunity because of someone you just started dating 3 days ago. You're not just someone, Dante says sharply. And it hasn't been 3 days. It's been the most honest 3 days of my life. But it has been 3 days. Silas forces himself to be rational, even as his chest feels like it's caving in. We barely know each other. Not really. We know weekend versions of each other, wedding bubble versions. That's not true. Isn't it? Silas stands, needing space to think clearly, but he doesn't go far. You know I'm a professional mourner who's good in a crisis and makes terrible jokes about death. I know you're a photographer who's brilliant at his work and terrible at feelings, but do you know my middle name? My favorite food? Whether I want kids someday? Dante is quiet behind him. Your middle name is Alexander, Silas continues, his voice softer now. Your favorite food is probably something incredibly sophisticated that I've never heard of. And you want kids someday, but you're terrified you'll be like your father. How did you... Because I've been watching you all weekend. Really watching. The way you light up when you talk about capturing authentic moments. The way you get this soft look when you see June and Fletcher together. The way you automatically check that children are okay before you worry about adults. Silas turns back to face him. I see you, Dante, but 3 days isn't enough to build a life-changing decision on. Dante stands too, crossing to him. So what are you saying? That we should just end this? Pretend this weekend didn't happen? I'm saying... Silas takes a breath, forces himself to be brave. I'm saying maybe you should take the gallery offer. And us? Silas's heart feels like it's breaking, but he pushes forward. Maybe if this is real, it can survive 6 months. And if it can't, then maybe it wasn't as real as we thought. 6 months, Silas. I know. A lot can change in 6 months. I know that too. They stand facing each other across the small space, the weight of possibility and loss hanging between them. Silas wants to take it back, to tell Dante to stay, to choose him over his dreams. But he can't. He's spent 3 years helping people process loss, and he knows the difference between grief that heals and grief that destroys. Keeping Dante from his art, from the opportunity he's worked toward for years, that would be the kind of loss that destroys. For what it's worth, Dante says quietly, I'm falling for you. Hard. The words hit Silas like a physical blow. He closes his eyes, letting them wash over him, storing them away like a photograph to carry him through whatever comes next. I'm falling for you too, he whispers, which is why I want you to go. When he opens his eyes, Dante is staring at him with something that might be understanding or might be heartbreak. Probably both. This is insane, Dante says. We just figured out we want to be together, and now we're talking about being apart for 6 months. Welcome to my world. Professional mourners are excellent at timing. Apparently so are wedding photographers. They stand there for another moment, the space between them feeling like both an inch and a mile. Then Dante reaches for his camera bag. I should edit these photos, keep my hands busy. Good idea. Silas retreats to the window seat, pulling his knees up again. I should call my sister. He dials B's number, expecting voicemail since she works nights at the hospital, but she picks up on the second ring. Please tell me you're not calling from jail, B says without preamble, because I'm not bailing you out of whatever weird funeral drama you've gotten yourself into this time. Why would I be in jail? Because you've been radio silent for 3 days, which either means you're dead, in jail, or having actual fun for once. Since you're calling me, I'm ruling out dead. Silas finds himself smiling despite everything. I've been at a wedding. A wedding? B's voice sharpens with interest. Since when do you do happy occasions? Did someone die at the reception? No one died. I was a guest, sort of. Silas Benjamin Reeve, what the hell have you been up to? He takes a breath, not sure how to explain any of this. I might be bringing someone to Sunday brunch, if that's still happening. The silence stretches long enough that Silas checks to make sure the call didn't drop. You're bringing someone, B says slowly. To family brunch. Someone you met at a wedding where no one died. His name is Dante. He's a photographer, and before you say anything... I'm not saying anything. I'm sitting here in shocked silence because my brother, who hasn't dated anyone in 2 years and thinks happiness is a character flaw, is apparently bringing a boyfriend to meet his family. He's not my... Silas stops. Actually, what is Dante? It's complicated. Complicated how? Like he's married complicated, or you're having actual feelings complicated? The second one. Silas picks at a loose thread on the window seat cushion. And also, he might be moving to Seattle for 6 months. Oh, honey. B's voice softens immediately. Tell me everything. So he does. Not the fake dating part, that's too complicated to explain, but the rest of it. Meeting Dante, the way he sees beauty and technical perfection, how he defended Silas's work, the Seattle Gallery opportunity. How terrified Silas is of wanting something this much. You know what I'm going to say, B says when he finishes. That I'm an idiot for encouraging him to take the Seattle opportunity? That you're an idiot for thinking 6 months is the end of the world. Her voice is gentle but firm. Silas, you've spent 3 years hiding behind other people's grief because you're terrified of risking your own happiness. This guy makes you want to be brave enough to feel joy instead of just witnessing it. What if it doesn't work? What if I'm just setting myself up for the kind of loss I help other people process? Then you'll survive it. Because you're stronger than you think, and because some things are worth the risk. B pauses. Besides, anyone who can make my emotionally constipated brother call me gushing about feelings must be pretty special. I wasn't gushing. You absolutely were gushing. It's disgusting, and I love it. He can hear her grinning through the phone. Bring him to brunch. I want to meet this photographer who's making you choose happiness for once. After they hang up, Silas sits in the window seat watching Dante work and thinks that maybe B's right. Maybe some things are worth the risk of loss. Maybe choosing joy is just another way of honoring what matters most. Everything okay? Dante asks, looking up from his laptop screen. You were quiet for a while there. Just talked to my sister. Told her I might be bringing someone to Sunday brunch. Might be? Silas grins. Depends on whether my former fake boyfriend wants to meet my family before he moves across the country. Dante's expression shifts. something settling in his face. When you put it like that, it sounds like you've already decided I should take Seattle. I have. Silas's voice is steadier than he expected. B helped me realize something. I've spent 3 years avoiding risk because I was scared of loss. But you make me want to be brave enough to choose possibility over safety. Even if it means 6 months apart? Even if it means 6 months apart. Silas stands, crossing to where Dante sits with his laptop. We'll figure it out. Phone calls, visits when we can afford them. Probably way too many emails about our days. Dante reaches for his hand, intertwining their fingers. You're sure? I'm terrified, Silas admits. But I'm sure. They sit together in the glow of the laptop screen, Dante's photographs of the weekend flickering past, moments of joy and love and authentic emotion that he captured because Silas taught him how to see with his heart instead of just his camera. Seattle, Dante says quietly, testing the word. Seattle, Silas agrees. And us, somehow making it work across 3,000 miles. Outside, the last of the reception cleanup fades into the quiet of early morning. Tomorrow they'll check out of room 237 and return to their separate lives. Dante to prepare for the biggest opportunity of his career, Silas to figure out how to be brave enough to wait for him. It's the most hopeful and heartbreaking ending to the most unexpected weekend of Silas's life. And somehow that feels like the beginning of something rather than the end. Chapter 10. Sunday Morning Crisis. Dante. Sunday morning light filters through room 237's windows with a different quality than the rest of the weekend. Less golden, more muted. Dante wakes to devastating clarity and the absence of warmth beside him. The space where Silas slept on the window seat is empty, blanket folded with the precision of someone who's used to not leaving traces of his presence. With checkout looming, everything feels suddenly fragile. Last night crashes back in waves. I'm falling for you too. Take the Seattle opportunity. 6 months. We'll figure it out. Did they really say those things? In the harsh light of Sunday morning, with his father's messages piling up and checkout looming, it feels like something that happened to someone else. Someone braver. Someone who knew what the hell he was doing. His phone shows 7:43 a.m. and 3 new messages from his father about portfolio deadlines and departure logistics. The Seattle gallery opportunity, 24 hours ago, it would have felt like salvation. Now it feels like a countdown timer on everything good he's discovered about himself this weekend. A soft knock interrupts his spiraling thoughts. Room service, Diego calls, his voice carrying its usual warmth, tinged with something more cautious than yesterday. Dante pulls on yesterday's shirt and opens the door to find the hotel manager with coffee and pastries, but his expression is uncharacteristically reserved. Good morning, Mr. Moreau. I trust you slept well? Diego sets the tray down carefully, his movements precise but less relaxed than usual. Mr. Reeve mentioned he'd be taking an early walk through the gardens. Needed some air, he said. The phrasing makes Dante's chest tight. Needed some air. Translation. Needed space to process the reality that whatever they said last night might have been wedding weekend madness. Did he say when he'd be back? No, sir, but Diego hesitates, then seems to make a decision. If I may, Mr. Moreau, I've been in hospitality for 20 years. I've seen many couples navigate difficult mornings during wedding weekends. The pressure, the romance, the reality that waits beyond Sunday checkout. It can be overwhelming. Dante stares at him. I'm not sure what you mean. I mean that whatever conversation you two had last night has left you both looking like you're questioning everything you thought you knew. Diego's voice is gentle but direct. Mr. Reeve asked about the latest possible checkout time. You're asking when he'll be back instead of where he is. That's not the behavior of a couple confident in their decisions. Fuck. Even the hotel staff can see they're falling apart. There are some complications, Dante admits. Ah. Diego nods knowingly. Career opportunities that require difficult choices? Something like that. Well, for what it's worth, I've seen many guests wrestle with these decisions. Some choose love, some choose career advancement. Most spend years wondering about the path not taken. Diego pauses meaningfully. The lucky ones find a way to choose both. After Diego leaves, Dante sits on the rumpled bed and stares at his father's messages. The Seattle opportunity is real, significant, potentially career-defining. 6 months developing a solo show at the Meridian Gallery, working with established artists, building the kind of reputation that could launch him into the fine art world he's always wanted to inhabit. Everything he thought he wanted before this weekend taught him that technical perfection without emotional truth creates beautiful but hollow art. His phone buzzes with a new text from Silas. In the conservatory helping with cleanup. Cordelia wants us at the couples ceremony at 10:30. Should we talk first? The couples appreciation ceremony. Christ, how do you stand in front of a room full of people and talk about partnership and lasting love when you're both probably having second thoughts about everything you said 12 hours ago? Dante types back. Where? Chapel. It's quiet. On my way. The stone chapel feels different in the morning light. Less romantic, more like a place where people come to figure out what they actually believe. Silas sits in the front pew, still in yesterday's clothes, staring at the stained glass window that cast rainbow patterns across June and Fletcher's ceremony. Hey, Dante says quietly, sliding into the pew beside him. Hey. Silas's voice is steady, but Dante can see the exhaustion around his eyes. So, that happened. Which part? The falling for each other or the part where I might be moving to Seattle in 5 days? Both. Silas turns to face him, and Dante's heart clenches at the careful composure in his expression. Did you mean it? What you said last night? Did you? They stare at each other for a moment, both apparently afraid to be the first one to admit they might have gotten carried away by wedding weekend magic. I meant it, Silas says finally. All of it. The falling for you, the thinking you should take Seattle, the being terrified about what any of it means. Relief floods through Dante so strongly it's almost painful. Good, because I meant it too, and I have no idea what to do with that. Join the club. Silas reaches for his hand, tentative this time, like he's not sure he's still allowed. I've been walking around the garden since we talked about Seattle last night, trying to figure out if encouraging you to take that opportunity is the most romantic thing I've ever done, or the stupidest. Maybe both? Definitely both. Silas's grip tightens slightly. But I keep coming back to the same thing. If I ask you to stay and you resent me for it later, that's worse than missing you for 6 months. What if 6 months turns into forever? What if I get to Seattle and realize this was just wedding fever? What if you don't take it and spend the rest of your life wondering what might have happened to your art? Silas counters. What if you stay for me and then hate me for holding you back? I wouldn't. You might. Not right away, but maybe in a year when another opportunity comes up and you realize you chose safety over growth. Silas's voice wavers slightly. I can't be the reason you don't become who you're supposed to be. Dante stares at their joined hands, Silas's words hitting him with uncomfortable truth. So, what are you saying? That we should... What? Try long distance? See if this survives 6 months of phone calls and maybe a few visits if we can afford them? I'm saying maybe we have to. Silas turns to face him fully. Because the alternative is pretending last night didn't happen, and I can't do that. Can you? No. Dante's voice is quieter than he intended. I can't pretend I don't feel this, whatever this is. So we're really doing this? Dating across 3,000 miles? I guess we are. Dante feels tears threatening and fights them back. This is insane. We've known each other for 3 days. The best kind of insane? The terrifying kind of insane. They sit in silence for a moment, hands linked, both staring at the altar where June and Fletcher promised to love each other through whatever came next. It seemed so simple when it was other people making the promises. The ceremony, Dante says finally. What do we tell people? That we're figuring it out as we go? Silas suggests. That sometimes caring about someone means supporting their dreams even when it's hard? Think anyone will buy it? Probably not Cordelia. She'll want details about our future plans and our children's names. Despite everything, Dante finds himself almost smiling. What do we tell her? The truth. That we're taking it one day at a time and hoping for the best. A noise from the chapel entrance makes them both turn. Cordelia appears in the doorway, resplendent in a flowing emerald dress that probably costs more than Dante's monthly rent. Oh, wonderful! There you are. She sweeps toward them with her arms outstretched. I've been looking everywhere for my favorite couple. We need to get you both ready for the appreciation ceremony. I have such beautiful things planned. Dante and Silas exchange a look, and somehow, despite everything, Silas's expression makes Dante want to laugh. The absurdity of their situation, processing the potential end of their relationship while preparing to give a speech about lasting love, is either tragic or comedic. We're ready, Mrs. Ashworth, Silas says, standing and offering Dante his hand. We've been talking about what partnership really means. Perfect! Cordelia claps her hands together. Because I want you two to be the centerpiece of today's ceremony. You've been such an inspiration to everyone this weekend. The way you support each other, the way you work through challenges together. You're going to help everyone understand what real love looks like. As she leads them toward the conservatory, chattering about the ceremony details, Dante feels Silas squeeze his hand. Once, gently. Real love, Dante thinks, apparently looks like being brave enough to let someone go. Ready? Silas murmurs as they approach the conservatory doors. No, Dante admits. You? Not even close. Good. At least we're honest about something. They're about to find out if they can perform authenticity while living it one more time. Chapter 11. The Truth Test. Silas. The conservatory has been transformed into something that looks like a temple to romance. Fairy lights drape between the palm fronds like captured stars, and Cordelia has arranged the seating in a perfect circle with him, and Dante positioned at what she keeps calling the heart of the room. The other couples, June and Fletcher, River and her boyfriend Marcus, Knox and his date Elena, sit in a semicircle that feels more like an audience than fellow participants. Remember, Cordelia announces, her voice carrying the authority of someone who's orchestrated countless dramatic moments. We're here to celebrate not just June and Fletcher's beautiful beginning, but all the love stories that have brought us together this weekend. Our dear Silas and Dante have agreed to share their journey with us, a perfect example of how true love weathers any storm. Silas feels Dante tense beside him on the small love seat they've been assigned. Their thighs press together, and he can feel the rapid rhythm of Dante's breathing through the contact. After last night's conversation about Seattle, after their decision to try long distance rather than surrender to fear, this should feel manageable. But the weight of performing authenticity while living it creates a strange doubling effect, like looking at himself in two mirrors at once. The thing is, Cordelia continues, settling into her chair with the satisfaction of someone about to witness her masterpiece unfold, real love isn't just about the easy moments. It's about choosing each other when things get complicated, when life demands difficult choices, when you have to prove that what you have is strong enough to survive challenges. Silas catches Dante's eye and sees the same recognition there. Somehow, without knowing it, Cordelia has handed them the perfect framework to tell their truth while maintaining their story. Silas, darling, Cordelia says, turning to him with expectant eyes. Why don't you start? Tell us about your most romantic moment with Dante. He takes a breath, thinking about everything that's happened since Friday evening. The Rose Garden maze, their first real kiss, last night's falling for you confession. All of it too precious and too private to share with an audience. But underneath those moments lies something he can offer them. Something true enough to matter. The most romantic moment, he begins, and his voice wavers slightly. I think it was yesterday morning, when there was that crisis with the centerpieces. I know that sounds... Oh, that was romantic? River interrupts with a laugh. Mismatched flowers seemed pretty much the opposite. That's exactly why it was romantic, Silas says, looking at Dante, who's watching him with those gray eyes that show so much more vulnerability than they used to. Because Dante could have stayed focused on his photographs, on his job, on all the technical things he's brilliant at. But instead, he saw a problem and immediately started thinking about solutions. He pauses, his throat tightening unexpectedly. I spend my professional life helping people through disasters. I'm used to being the one who fixes things. But watching Dante take charge, seeing him care so much about making sure everything was beautiful, not for his portfolio, but because he wanted people to be happy, that's when I realized. Realized what? Cordelia prompts, leaning forward. Silas glances at Dante, whose face has gone slightly pale. That he has a bigger heart than he lets people see. That all those walls he puts up are just protection. And romance isn't about grand gestures. It's about someone seeing a problem and thinking, how can we fix this together? Dante's fingers find his, squeezing gently, and Silas can see the emotion gathering in his expression. Surprise and gratitude, and something deeper that makes his chest tighten. And you, Dante? Cordelia turns to him with expectant patience. What's your favorite thing about loving Silas? For a moment, Dante just stares at him, and Silas can practically see him panicking about what to say. When he speaks, his voice has that careful precision that means he's trying not to mess up. My favorite thing, Dante says slowly, then stops. Starts again. Silas has taught me that feeling things isn't a weakness. He pauses, and when he continues, his voice is less steady. I used to think that if I could control every element of a photograph, the lighting, the composition, everything, then I could create something meaningful. Silas watches as Dante's professional composure starts to crack, revealing someone who's genuinely struggling with public vulnerability. But being around Silas made me realize that all my technical perfection was just avoiding the real stuff, the human stuff. Dante's voice catches slightly. During the ceremony earlier today, I took a picture of him just experiencing joy, not performing it, not thinking about it, just feeling it completely. And that photograph is... He stops, collecting himself. It's the best work I've ever done because for once I captured something real instead of something safe. The room has gone very quiet. Silas can feel the attention of everyone present, but more importantly, he can feel Dante's hand trembling slightly in his. What Silas has taught me, Dante continues, his voice getting stronger, is that there's a difference between feeling too much and feeling authentically. And I'd rather feel too much than feel nothing at all. June actually has tears in her eyes, and Fletcher is looking at his new wife like he's remembering something important. But surely, Cordelia says, and there's something different in her voice now, something less theatrical. Your relationship hasn't been without challenges. All great love stories require overcoming obstacles. This is the moment Silas has been both dreading and anticipating. He feels Dante go very still beside him and realizes they're about to navigate the truth in real time in front of 8 people who believe their story. Actually, Silas says, his voice less steady than he'd like, we're dealing with something pretty challenging right now. He feels Dante's sharp intake of breath, but when Silas glances over, he sees not panic, but something like relief, as if Dante wants to stop pretending everything is simple. Dante has this incredible opportunity, Silas continues, and he's surprised by how his voice wavers. 6 months in Seattle working with a gallery. It could change everything for his career, but it means... He stops, unable to finish the sentence. 6 months apart. 6 months of wondering if what they found will survive distance and time and all the 1,000 ways long-distance relationships fall apart. It means we'll be apart, Dante finishes quietly. For half a year, right when we're just figuring out what this is? Oh no, June breathes, her hand going to her heart. That's horrible timing. Is it, though? Silas asks, and he's not sure if he believes what he's about to say or if he's trying to convince himself. I mean, yes, it's terrifying. Yes, I'm going to miss him so much it physically hurts to think about. And yes, 6 months feels impossible when you're just starting to... He stops, realizing he's about to say fall in love in front of 8 people, and his nerve fails him. When you've just found something real, Dante fills in softly, and Silas could kiss him for the save. But maybe, Silas continues, finding his footing again, if what we have is actually real, then it should be able to survive this. And if it can't, he swallows hard. Then maybe it wasn't as strong as we thought. That's terrifying, River says quietly. Everything about this is terrifying, Dante admits, his voice more honest than Silas has ever heard it in public. I've never felt this connected to someone, and the idea of being 3,000 miles away. He stops, shaking his head, but then something shifts in his expression, and Silas sees the exact moment when Dante's photographer brain kicks into problem-solving mode. Wait, Dante says suddenly, his grip tightening on Silas's hand. What if I'm approaching this all wrong? The room goes quiet, everyone watching as Dante pulls out his phone with his free hand. Dante? Silas asks carefully. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that what I said about you changing my art, that's not just weekend inspiration. That's fundamental, revolutionary. Dante's voice is gaining momentum, certainty. The photographs I took this weekend are the best work I've ever done, and it's because you taught me to capture authentic emotion instead of hiding from it. Silas's heart starts racing, though he's not sure why. Okay. What if the gallery doesn't need me for 6 months because I need to learn something in Seattle? What if they need me because I've already learned something here? Dante looks around the room, then back at Silas. What if I can show them work that's already transformed? Dante, Silas says softly, what are you saying? Instead of answering immediately, Dante scrolls through his contacts and hits call before anyone can stop him. He puts the phone on speaker, his hand shaking slightly. Meridian Gallery, this is James Holloway speaking. Mr. Holloway, this is Dante Moreau. I'm sorry to call on a Sunday, but I needed to discuss the Seattle residency offer. Silas feels his stomach drop. Around the circle, everyone has gone completely still, watching this real-time relationship crisis unfold. Mr. Moreau, I was hoping to hear from you. Have you made a decision about the 6-month residency? Actually, I wanted to propose something different, Dante says, his voice steadying with each word. What if instead of a 6-month learning residency, I could offer you a 3-month intensive showcase? I've just completed a body of work that represents a complete artistic breakthrough. Wedding photography that captures authentic human emotion in ways I've never achieved before. Silas stares at him, hardly daring to breathe. That's intriguing, James says. Can you tell me more about this breakthrough? Dante looks directly at Silas, and his voice becomes warm, genuine. I learned to stop hiding behind technical perfection and start seeing the real emotional truth in my subjects. The result is work that's both artistically sophisticated and deeply human. I believe it could anchor a show about the intersection of technical skill and emotional authenticity in contemporary photography. And you could be ready for a 3-month intensive in what time frame? I could deliver a portfolio in 2 weeks and be in Seattle for 3 months, starting the 1st of next month, with regular trips back home to continue developing this new approach with my inspiration. Silas's heart is hammering so hard he's sure everyone can hear it. Mr. Moreau, that's exactly the kind of artistic evolution we look for. If the portfolio matches what you're describing, I think we could make this work. 3 months, intensive show development, with the possibility of extension if the work merits it. Thank you, Dante says, his voice thick with emotion. I'll send the initial portfolio by Tuesday. After he hangs up, the conservatory is completely silent, except for the sound of 8 people breathing. Well, Knox says finally, that was the most romantic phone call I've ever witnessed. Dante turns to Silas, and there are actual tears in his eyes. 3 months instead of 6. Regular trips home. And it's because of what you taught me about authentic emotion. We did this together. Silas stares at him, overwhelmed. You You just negotiated a major career opportunity in front of 8 people because you didn't want to be away from me for 6 months. I negotiated a major career opportunity because you made me a better artist, and I wanted everyone to know that. Dante brings their joined hands to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to Silas's knuckles. And because love shouldn't mean choosing between the person who inspires you and the work that inspiration creates. Oh my God, June whispers, tears streaming down her face. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Cordelia stands up, clapping slowly. Now that, she says, is how you solve a love story obstacle. Not by accepting the impossible choice, but by refusing to accept that the choice has to be impossible. Fletcher grins. Dude, you just turned your relationship crisis into a business negotiation. That's legendary. As the group erupts in applause and congratulations, Silas feels something shift fundamentally in his chest. Not just relief that they won't be separated for half a year, but recognition that Dante didn't just solve their problem, he transformed it into proof of what they could accomplish together. So, Silas says quietly as the celebration continues around them, 3 months in Seattle with visits home. 3 months in Seattle with my inspiration visiting as often as possible. Dante's smile is radiant. Think you can handle dating an artist who's about to be moderately famous? Think you can handle dating a professional mourner who just watched you turn heartbreak into triumph in front of a live audience? I think, Dante says, pulling him closer. We're going to be just fine. River raises her champagne glass. To couples who refuse to accept impossible choices. To love that makes you braver and more creative, June adds. To Dante and Silas, Cordelia says with satisfaction, who just proved that real love doesn't conquer all. It transforms all? As they toast, Silas catches Dante's eye and sees his own wonder reflected there. They started this weekend as strangers thrown together by accident. They're ending it as partners who just proved they can solve anything together. The champagne tastes like possibility and certainty in equal measure, and when Dante's hand finds his again, Silas thinks that maybe this is what real love feels like after all. Not certain about everything, but absolutely certain about each other. Chapter 12. Ever After. Dante. The soft morning light filtering through room 237's windows feels different now. Less like an ending, more like a beginning. Dante watches Silas fold his black suit with the same care he's shown everything this weekend, but there's something fundamentally changed in the ritual. No urgency, no dread. Just 2 people packing to go home together, to plan a future that suddenly has concrete shape instead of terrifying uncertainty. You know, Silas says, not looking up from his suitcase, I keep thinking about last night. About that phone call. Dante pauses in rolling his camera equipment into its protective case, still hardly believing what happened. Having second thoughts? The opposite. Silas sits on the edge of the bed, grinning like he can't quite contain his happiness. I keep replaying the moment when you said, with my inspiration visiting as often as possible. Did you really just tell a gallery director that your boyfriend is your artistic muse? The word boyfriend still sends a little thrill through Dante's chest. I told him the truth. That you transformed my work from technically perfect but emotionally empty to something that actually matters. He sets down his telephoto lens, needing to see Silas's face when he says this. And I wanted everyone to know that what we have isn't something that gets in the way of my career. It is my career breakthrough. Silas's expression goes soft, wondering. 3 months seems so much more manageable than 6. 3 months with visits home every few weeks, Dante corrects, crossing to sit beside him. The gallery was actually excited about the idea of documenting the creative process through relationship inspiration. Apparently, love as artistic catalyst is very trendy in contemporary art circles. Of course it is. Silas laughs, leaning into Dante's shoulder. Only you could turn our emotional crisis into cutting-edge artistic theory. Only we could turn our emotional crisis into cutting-edge artistic theory, Dante corrects. I couldn't have done any of this without you teaching me how to feel things authentically. They sit in comfortable silence for a moment, both processing the magnitude of how much has changed since yesterday morning. Outside their window, the estate grounds are quiet except for the distant sound of the cleanup crew finishing their work. By this afternoon, all traces of June and Fletcher's wedding will be gone, but what Dante and Silas built here will continue. Can I tell you something? Silas says suddenly. Anything. When you made that phone call, when you negotiated for us instead of just accepting separation, Silas turns to face him fully. That's when I knew for absolutely certain that I'm in love with you. The words hit Dante like sunshine breaking through clouds. You knew before then that you were falling for me. What changed? Before, I was falling for the man who defended my work and made me feel valued and showed me how to choose joy over safety. Silas's voice grows softer. But last night, I fell in love with the man who looked at an impossible situation and said, "No, this doesn't have to be impossible. We can make this work." Dante feels tears threatening and doesn't fight them. I love you too. So much that when I was sitting there listening to everyone talk about love being worth fighting for, I realized I didn't want to fight distance and separation. I wanted to fight for solutions. Very romantic problem solving. The most romantic. Dante grins, wiping his eyes. Though I have to admit, I was terrified Marcus Chen would think I was crazy. Crazy like a fox. A very artistic, emotionally authentic fox. A soft knock interrupts them. Check out in 15 minutes. Cordelia's voice calls through the door, but it carries warmth rather than urgency. But first, one final couple's photo session in the gardens. They exchange a look, part amusement, part genuine affection for the woman who accidentally orchestrated their entire relationship. Should we tell her we're actually together now? Dante asks. That her matchmaking worked? I think she knows. I think she's known since Friday night. Silas stands, pulling Dante up with him. Besides, these photos will be perfect for the gallery's documentation of the Love as Artistic Catalyst project. Everything's research now? Everything's real now, Silas corrects, and the distinction matters more than Dante expected. The rose garden looks different in morning light. Less magical, more solid. Real. Cordelia poses them near the maze entrance where they got lost yesterday, where they first admitted their feelings were genuine. But now, as Sage snaps photos with Dante's backup camera, there's nothing fake about the way Silas leans into him, nothing performed about the way Dante's hand settles on Silas's lower back. Beautiful, Sage murmurs, capturing a candid moment where they're both looking slightly dazed by their own happiness. You two look like you just solved the meaning of life. Just the meaning of love, Silas says, grinning at Dante. Turns out it's about creative problem solving. June and Fletcher join them for group shots, still glowing with newlywed happiness, but also with something deeper. The satisfaction of having witnessed something real and beautiful unfold. You know, June says during a pose break, what you did last night was exactly what Fletcher and I want our marriage to be like. When we hit obstacles, I want us to problem solve together, instead of just accepting that things have to be hard. It was the most romantic thing I've ever seen, Fletcher adds with a grin. Negotiating a business deal as a love declaration. I'm definitely stealing that move. Knox appears with his usual boundless energy, but there's something more thoughtful in his expression. Dante, can I ask you something about that phone call? How did you know the gallery would go for a shorter residency? Dante considers this. Honestly, I didn't. But I figured the worst they could say was no, and then we'd be exactly where we started. But if they said yes, he looks at Silas. Then we'd have proved that most problems have solutions if you're willing to think creatively. Plus, Silas adds, Dante's new work really is revolutionary. Once they see what authentic emotion brings to technical skill, they're going to want to document every part of the process. Speaking of which, Cordelia interrupts, approaching with a manila envelope. I took the liberty of printing some of yesterday's photos for you, including that absolutely stunning shot Dante took of you during the ceremony, Silas. She hands them the envelope, and Dante's breath catches when he sees the image on top. It's the photograph he took of Silas crying with joy during June and Fletcher's vows. Tears caught in his lashes like diamonds, face radiant with genuine happiness for strangers' love. But seeing it printed, he realizes it's even more powerful than he remembered. This is going to be the centerpiece of your Seattle show, Silas says softly, studying the photo. This is what authentic emotion looks like when technical skill serves the feeling instead of hiding from it. How do you know so much about art? Dante asks, struck again by Silas's insight. I don't know anything about art, but I know everything about authentic emotion. Silas smiles. Good thing you know everything about technical skill. We make a good team. The best team. Checkout happens in a blur of luggage and business cards and promises that feel completely different from the uncertain hopes of yesterday. Diego hugs them both goodbye, slipping Dante a card for a hotel in Seattle, for when he visits, and I expect detailed reports about the art project. Knox gives Silas his business card and says, I meant what I said about wanting to talk more about grief stuff. My therapist thinks it would be good for me to process my dad's death properly. Would that be something you'd help with? Of course, Silas says warmly. Call me anytime. And bring Dante. He's excellent at capturing healing moments. River pulls them aside near the lobby fireplace. So, you're actually going to be okay now? Because yesterday I was worried you were both going to be miserable for 6 months. We're going to be better than okay, Dante says, surprising himself with how certain he sounds. We're going to be long distance for 3 months, and then I'm coming home with a gallery show under my belt and a portfolio that proves love makes better art. And I'm going to visit Seattle as often as possible to make sure he doesn't forget how to feel things authentically, Silas adds. Plus, I might have a few clients out there who need professional mourning services. You're going to work together? We're going to live together, Dante corrects. Work is just part of it. River grins. Good. You two are disgustingly perfect for each other. In the parking lot, they load their bags into Dante's car instead of separating into 2 vehicles. Silas's ancient Honda will stay at his apartment while they spend the next 5 days together, planning and preparing and figuring out the logistics of their new life. So, Silas says, settling into the passenger seat, first stop, your apartment so I can see your real work? The photographs you take for yourself? First stop, your apartment so I can meet your sister properly and see these houseplants with ridiculous names. Dante starts the engine, then pauses. Actually, first stop, that Italian place you mentioned. With the terrible wine and perfect breadsticks. For brunch? We just figured out how to make impossible things possible, and we should celebrate brunch. I like that kind of brunch. As they drive away from Willowbrook Estate, Dante finds himself thinking about Friday afternoon. How terrified he was when Cordelia mistook him for Silas's boyfriend. How convinced he was that this weekend would be a disaster to survive rather than a life to build. What are you thinking about? Silas asks, apparently reading his expression. Just this weekend. How wrong I was about everything. What were you wrong about? I thought feelings were the enemy of good art. I thought vulnerability was weakness. I thought love meant having to choose between the person you care about and the dreams you're trying to build. Dante reaches over to take Silas's hand. Turns out feelings make art better. Vulnerability is what makes moments worth capturing, and love means finding someone who makes your dreams bigger instead of smaller. Very philosophical for a Monday morning. Very romantic for a fake relationship that turned real. The best kind of real, Silas agrees, squeezing his fingers. The Italian restaurant is mostly empty at 11 a.m. on a Monday, which means they get a corner table with good light and complete privacy to plan their future. Over terrible wine and perfect breadsticks, they hash out the details. Dante will spend 2 weeks preparing his portfolio, fly to Seattle the first week of next month. Silas will visit every 3 weeks. They'll call every day, text constantly, and document the entire process for the gallery's Love as Artistic Catalyst exhibition. What happens after the 3 months? Silas asks, twirling pasta around his fork. I come home. We move in together properly. I start building a career around authentic emotion photography. Dante pauses, fork halfway to his mouth. And maybe we plan our own wedding, since apparently we're experts at those now. Silas nearly chokes on his wine. Did you just argue? I'm not proposing, Dante says quickly, though his heart is racing. I'm just projecting. Optimistically. Good projecting. Very optimistic. Silas grins. Though if you do ever propose, can you do it somewhere more romantic than a restaurant that serves house wine from a box? I'll keep that in mind. Also, I want a spring wedding. Good lighting for the photographs. You want me to photograph my own wedding? I want you to capture authentic emotion at your own wedding, Silas corrects. There's a difference. Dante laughs, feeling lighter than he has in years. Deal? Spring wedding, good lighting, authentic emotion, and a professional mourner who taught me how to choose joy. And a photographer who taught me that some connections are worth exploring, Silas adds, raising his terrible wine in a toast. To impossible things becoming possible. To fake relationships becoming real. To ever after. They clink glasses over breadcrumbs and future plans, and Dante thinks about how he'll photograph this moment if he could. The way the afternoon light catches in Silas's hair, the warmth in his brown eyes, the absolute certainty that whatever comes next, they'll figure it out together. It's the kind of photograph that would be technically imperfect and emotionally flawless. Exactly the kind of art he wants to spend the rest of his life creating, with exactly the person he wants to spend the rest of his life creating it with.
Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe, leave a comment, and review